Full Metal Storm, Battle of the Machines. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 870 Another Turbulence. Afternoon. In the wilderness, a snowmobile was parked in the messy grass. Luoyan lay on the roof of the car, holding a telescope found in the snowmobile, looking at the camp in front. This camp is of average size, with a prominent main building. There are several guards on alert outside the camp. They are dozing off and look very relaxed. Luoyan observed the other conditions of the camp again, then left the snowmobile. He covered himself with a silver white cloak, used the secret method of opening the ghost wheel, and with the help of various covers, went around to the south of the camp. This is the parking lot, where there are fewer people, and can be used as an entry point to sneak into the camp. As for the high walls and high voltage power grids, they are not difficult for Luoyan. After entering the parking lot, Luoyan heard someone talking from a distance. Take good care of Mr. Ruin's car. If this car is scratched, even a little bit, be careful that I will peel off your skin. Luoyan hid behind a truck and looked at the source of the sound. There was a snow-armored vehicle parked there. The vehicle was heavily armored and could withstand bullets and even grenades. It was also equipped with an anti-aircraft machine gun. There were many antennas on the roof, so it could be used as a mobile command post when needed. The person who could be called Mr. Ruin in the Xianfu group, and who rode in this kind of vehicle, must be Ruin Xianfu. Luoyan opened his divine treasure and scanned the main building of the camp not far away. He soon found Ruin Xianfu in a room on the 3rd floor. The next step was simple. He quietly left the parking lot and rushed straight to the main building. There were no obstacles between the parking lot and the main building, so Luoyan had no way to hide his whereabouts. But since he had already come here, there was no need to hide. When he rushed to the main building gate, he activated his skills, and the flame sun clothes condensed and emerged, and the dragon elephant was unsheathed. Clang! With a sound of swords, the guards in front of the gate realized that there was an enemy, and it was right in front of them. When they hurriedly took out their pistols and raised their rifles, Luoyan had already passed by them. In the scorching air, several guards all had blood spurting from their necks and fell down sobbing. Luoyan rushed into the gate. In the hall inside the gate, several guards had already noticed the situation outside the building. As soon as Luoyan came in, he greeted with a rifle. One of the guards even threw a fragmentation grenade at Luoyan. Gunshots and explosions immediately rang out downstairs. This alarmed Ruin Xianfu in the office on the 3rd floor. The middle-aged man immediately stood up. What's going on? His security captain immediately picked up the intercom and looked at Ruin Xianfu after a few breaths. Someone is invading. Mr. Ruin, please leave with us immediately. The security captain made a gesture, and several bodyguards cleared the way in front. Ruin Xianfu followed the captain out of the office without saying a word. When they came to the elevator showed up, and the security captain immediately made a gesture to leave 2 bodyguards. He and the other bodyguards escorted Ruin Xianfu to the safe passage. The elevator arrived, and as soon as the door opened, the 2 bodyguards shot inside. Bang, bang, bang. Bullets kept falling at their feet. After a burst of shooting, they found that there was nothing in the elevator door, only the bodies of several guards. On the other hand, on the other side of the safety passage, just as Ruin Xianfu and his party came to the door of the passage burst and shattered. Several pieces of scorching golden waves broke through the air. The security captain knew that it was powerful and shouted loudly and threw Ruin Xianfu to the ground. The bodyguards were slow to react and were killed by the scorching sword energy. The security captain quickly pulled Ruin Xianfu up and threw a grenade-like object towards the entrance. This thing exploded a large piece of light green smoke, which contained highly toxic substances and pungent smells. He hoped to delay the other party's steps a little. Unexpectedly, the intruder rushed out of the poisonous smoke, as if he didn't care about his life. Luoyan didn't care about his life, but the dragon blood essence had no pressure to swallow such toxins. He just deliberately let the elevator go up, to mislead the people above. He rushed up from the safety passage. Sure enough, Ruin Xianfu and others were misled by him, missed the elevator, and came to the most dangerous safety passage instead. Ruin Xianfu was right in front of him. How could Luo Yan miss him? He immediately pushed through the poisonous smoke and rushed into the corridor. The guards who came from other places in the corridor tried desperately to stop Luo Yan. But how could they stop him? Their bullets were blocked by the golden armor, and even the grenade could not threaten Luo Yan with the dragon scales. Luo Yan only needed to chop out the sword energy to easily kill him. The guards' attacks could not stop Luo Yan for a moment. He chased after Ruin Xianfu in front of him. Ruin Xianfu had been taken back to the original office by the security captain. Mr. Ruin, you leave through the window. Leave it to me. Outside the window, there was an emergency evacuation staircase, which was prepared to prevent accidents. Ruin Xianfu nodded and ran to the window. At this time, the door of the office was broken. He looked back and saw a figure wearing a golden ancient long robe rushing in and passing by the security captain. The security captain immediately flew out like a cannonball, with dozens of blood arrows spurting out of his body. Then the figure blurred, and when it reappeared, it was already blocking the window. Ruin Xianfu stopped immediately. Otherwise, he would have hit the opponent's sword. Who are you? Ruin Xianfu shouted. Luo Yan just found it funny, and he said lightly, you let people chase me, but you don't know who I am. Ruin Xianfu's head buzzed. Are you the murderer who killed Zhou? Why are you here? Are Jingyu and Nandu Yao dead too? Luo Yan did not answer, but raised the dragon elephant and swung it violently. Ruin Xianfu's eyes widened. The hand that he had just taken out from his waist to take out the pistol was cut off, and then a red line appeared on his forehead. The red line spread rapidly, and then blood spurted out from it. Ruin Xianfu suddenly lost all his strength and sat on the ground, feeling the taste of his vitality leaving quickly. So, this is death. After he had this thought, he stopped breathing. Luo Yan exhaled. Finally, Ruin Xianfu was solved. In this way, the Xianfu group will be leaderless. Once Ruin Xianfu dies, the people below will inevitably fight for dominance. This group will no longer have time to hunt him down. There was a lot of noise outside the building, and it was obvious that everyone in the camp had been alarmed. They were heading towards the main building. It was time to leave. Luo Yan broke out of the window and landed on the ground. The dragon elephant broke the wall and made a gap. When the camp guards arrived, he had already left with his sword. A moment later, Luo Yan returned to the location of the snowmobile. When he came here, he suddenly stopped. Then he turned around and drew his sword. The dragon elephant split a golden ripple and sank into a nearby abandoned building. A figure flashed out of the building and stood in front of Luo Yan. This was a man in his 30s, wearing black clothes and black armor, with indifferent eyes. Luo Yan narrowed his eyes slightly, and circles of silver appeared in his red eyes, and the man's information appeared in his field of vision. Xiao Wu, 32 years old, descendant number 6 of Shenghu Group. Luo Yan was a little surprised. Just after Ruin Xianfu was dealt with, Shenghu Group popped up. It was really like one crisis after another. Chapter 871 Silent Killing. Luo Yan used his silver eyes to scan the surroundings and found no other creatures. In other words, he was the only one who came to Shenghu Group. However, there was a sentence in the message that caught Luo Yan's attention. Bloodline number 6. At that time, Kezen, who showed his beastly posture, mentioned bloodline when he saw Luo Yan's dragon transformation. His original words at that time were, "Are you also a bloodline?" In other words, Kezen's identity is a bloodline, but he has no number. This means that Xiao Wu in front of him is stronger than Kezen. The number 6 is below average. Therefore, Xiao Wu should represent the average combat power of the bloodline members in Shenghu Group. As for Kezen, he is naturally at the lower level, and maybe the lowest level. You are alone. It seems that you are very confident. Luo Yan planned to ask him questions to see which other bloodlines participated in the action against him. He paid attention to the other party's voice, but the bloodline numbered 6 was unusually calm. There was no reaction to Luo Yan's words. This made Luo Yan narrow his eyes. He turned to analyze Xiao Wu's surface veins. After the analysis was completed, he could look down on Xiao Wu from an unspeakable height and find the opponent's flaw. At this time, Xiao Wu's aura changed. Large patches of dark red scales appeared on the surface of his body, covering his whole body in an instant. His hair grew rapidly, and the roots were dyed red, but in the middle, it turned black. 2 deer antlers rose on both sides of his forehead. Unlike the horns of Luo Yan's transformation into a dragon, these 2 deer antlers were not illusory, but real. Finally, the whites of his eyes were dyed red, and the brown pupils turned golden. At this moment, the aura emitted by Xiao Wu was inhuman. Beast transformation. Chillin. Under the premise of maintaining rationality, he obtained the posture and ability of a fierce beast. Because the beast blood he carried was relatively pure, he stimulated magical abilities, and obtained the special skills of Thunder Dragon, Windbird, Wood Snake and Iron Bear. This information appeared in Luo Yan's vision. At the same time, Xiao Wu waved at the Snaumobile not far away. The Snaumobile immediately groaned, twisted, and deformed, and rolled towards Luo Yan. While rolling, all the impurities in the body, except the metal, were expelled. Finally, the ball of metal turned into a giant bear standing up, opened its mouth, but did not make any sound, and slapped Luo Yan fiercely with a pair of bear paws. This is a strange art of controlling metal. Luo Yan's pupils shrank slightly, and he jumped away from the spot. The giant metal bear slapped the snow with its paws, and the power was like a bombardment. The snow exploded, mud and powder splashed everywhere, and the whole ground shook slightly. Without making a sound, the iron bear stood up again, raised its palm and waved, throwing out claws. Those claws stretched and deformed in the air, turning into iron spikes, and shooting at Luo Yan. Luo Yan unfolded his steps, and his figure moved like a dragonfly on the water. He suddenly changed his position and let the iron spikes miss. He ignored the giant metal bear, and rushed towards Xiao Wu instead. As long as he got rid of this man, these strange arts would naturally be solved. Xiao Wu raised his hands at this time, with his palms facing the trees and grass on both sides, and swung his arms violently. The trees and grass immediately changed, they mixed together, and woven a huge python. Strange art. Wooden snake. The deadwood snake quickly coiled around Xiao Wu to form a protection, and at the same time, opened its mouth to bite Luo Yan. Luo Yan stopped and dodged sideways, leaving the giant snake to bite nothing. At this time, Xiao Wu's hands kept waving inside the snake formation, and a strong wind gradually appeared. The airflow was gathered by an invisible force, and turned into a bird formed by the strong wind. Windbird. Xiao Wu released the colorless transparent bird. It flew into the air, and then swooped down. At the same time, the iron bear ran wildly, and the wooden snake swam. 3 kinds of strange arts, from the sky to the ground, besieged Luo Yan. Bang! There was a loud noise. The ground shook. Xiao Wu's body shook slightly, and then his golden eyes shrank a little bit. He saw Luo Yan in the distance. He stepped on the dead tree snake. He held up a metal giant bear with his sword. He repelled the invisible wind bird with his palm. Moreover, grey-blue scales appeared on the surface of Luo Yan's body. A golden line stood up in the depths of his red eyes. An illusory curved horn stretched out from his forehead. A ball of red light appeared on his chest. 10 fingers grew, claws that emitted a demonic bloodlight. The posture of transforming into a dragon. Luo Yan, who showed his posture, exuded a fierce beast aura at this moment, which was completely different from Xiao Wu. He had swallowed many things, even the blood of Shibi corpse blood essence, the blood of Blood River Cauldron and the disaster light. The fierce aura released by the dragon blood essence made Xiao Wu feel as if he had encountered a natural enemy. The holy blood in his body was greatly suppressed, and he seemed a little listless. The silent man who had not said a word since his appearance until now. Only then did he cry out, "You are a holy descendant? How is that possible?" In his understanding, only holy descendants favored by the Holy Lord would have such a posture and aura. Luo Yan certainly didn't know what a holy descendant was. He only knew that the dragon blood essence was interested in them, the blood descendants who could use the beast posture. This time it was Luo Yan's turn to remain silent. He stepped hard and crushed the wooden snake. The dragon elephant rose up and picked up the iron bear. He closed his 5 fingers and caught the wind sparrow. The blood in Luo Yan's body surged and turned into fire, making the golden vertical lines in his eyes shine brightly, turning into 2 lightning bolts. piercing Xiao Wu's eyes fiercely. Xiao Wu's whole body shook. Suddenly, he could not see anything in front of him. Luo Yan, the snow, the woods, and the ruins all disappeared. There was only darkness. Then in this darkness, the roar of a ferocious beast sounded. Suddenly, a head as big as a mountain peak poked out from the darkness. It was a head that looked like a lizard and a dragon. Its golden eyes emitted a fascinating light. It opened its bloody mouth and bit towards Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu screamed. Then he watched the lizard dragon bite off his head, watched the sharp teeth as thick as trees close together, and watched himself being torn into pieces under the bite of the lizard dragon. In Luo Yan's vision, Xiao Wu's body was intact, but he was stunned, as if his soul was wandering in the sky. Luo Yan knew that Xiao Wu was affected by the eye-breaking flying Han. Xiao Wu's beast posture was affected by the dragon blood essence. His mind was already shaken, and then he was attacked by the unique skills that affected his will. He fell into an unfavorable situation. Luo Yan certainly didn't treat him politely. At this moment in his eyes, the lines that outlined Xiao Wu appeared at the neck. That was a flaw. It was also a weakness. The dragon elephant swept across, and a sword light bypassed Xiao Wu's neck. When Luo Yan stopped behind Xiao Wu, the man's head shook and fell off his neck into the snow. After a while, blood began to flow out and spread, dyeing the surrounding snow bright red. Chapter 872 Stranger. The amber light emanating from Luo Yan was burying into Xiao Wu's body, devouring his blood. To be precise, it was the animal blood that Shenghu Group got from somewhere. Luo Yan was now certain that Shenghu Group should have relied on the animal blood and blood descendants like Xiaohu to sweep across the surface and become a behemoth that was superior to Xianfu Group. After a while, the amber light was retracted and shrunk into Luo Yan's body. Luo Yan took a deep breath. He had obtained a portion of essence blood, red scale essence blood, burn this essence blood with boiling blood to obtain the warlock state. In the warlock state, you can use it to special arts of Thunder Dragon and Wind Bird. The state can be used 6 times. Warlock state. There are only 2 special arts that can be used. It can be used 6 times. Xiao Wu has not used the Thunder Dragon, but Luo Yan knows the special art of Wind Bird. The bird formed by the violent airflow is not the dragon transformation posture he used. Otherwise, if you catch the wind bird with your bare hands, your palm will be shredded by the airflow that is sharper than a blade. In addition, after Xiao Wu's magic is formed, you don't have to distract yourself to control it. These beasts formed by magic can cooperate with the magician and fight together. It can enrich tactics to a great extent. The only shortcoming is that he can only use 2 magics, and the state can only be used 6 times. But after all, it is a stolen power, so Luo Yan doesn't care so much. He looked around and muttered, the snowmobile was used by Xiao Wu to shape the Iron Bear. It seems that I can only go back to the camp to get a car. The camp was in chaos because of Ruan Xianfu's death. In addition, no one thought that Luo Yan would come back. So Luo Yan easily snatched a snowmobile and left. Asterisk 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 in the forest not far from the blizzard base. In the cabin where Yifei and Song Qiutang were hiding. Song Qiutang was fiddling with the Jiuying. After testing it and confirming that the device was not damaged, she breathed a sigh of relief. Sister, are you Mr. Luo's friend? Yifei squatted beside Song Qiutang, biting a thin branch in his mouth, looking at the Jiuying device with curiosity. Also, what is this thing? When the kid stole it back, I looked at it for a long time, but couldn't figure it out. Song Qiutang laughed. If you can figure it out, you will be great. At least you will have a good job and a comfortable life. Yifei looked unconvinced. You don't look comfortable either. Song Qiutang sighed. This is an accident. You're Mr. Luo, and I can barely be considered friends. But both of us came together because we needed something from each other. When our goal is achieved, we will go our separate ways. Yifei said and pointed at the Jiuying device with the branch in his mouth. You haven't told me what this thing is yet? Song Qiutang closed Jiuying, changed the password, and said with a smile, a device. Don't ask so many questions, it's not good for you. Yifei made a throat-cutting gesture. Is it the kind that the more you know, the easier it is to click? Song Qiutang nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, yes. At this time, Yifen's mobile phone vibrated. He took it out and looked at it and couldn't help but say, "Huh? What's wrong?" Song Tang asked. Yifen turned on his mobile phone and said, "The alarm of the old house was triggered. I want to see if it's a person or an animal." "What old house?" Song Tang was confused. Yifen explained, "That was the first secret base we built before, but I felt that it was not hidden enough, so I abandoned it later. But the house was still preserved. We dug a few tunnels there. When necessary, we can use that house to get rid of tracking." He smiled awkwardly. "Their mole gang specializes in stealing and sneaking. The streets and alleys in the base are complicated, not to mention the underground sewers. They also focus on unfamiliar faces. People who have just come to the Blizzard base are naturally not as familiar with the situation as these little ghosts. They can easily get rid of the owner in the base. But it's different outside the base. Sometimes, they would get into trouble when hunting in the wild, and Yifei would use the old house to get rid of his opponents. Of course, this kind of thing doesn't happen often. Otherwise, the secret of the old house would have been exposed long ago." At this time, a surveillance picture appeared on Yifei's mobile phone screen. The picture was not very clear, but it could be seen that there were several strangers moving around in the house. A woman wearing sunglasses raised her head, looked towards the camera, and then smiled. This smile made Yifei shudder. Asterisk 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 in the evening. A boot stepped on the body of the Iron Bear. After Xiaowu died, the strange art was lifted, but the metal bear transformed from the snowmobile still retained its original appearance. Jiuying looked at the iron lump under his feet and said, "Either this is an artwork processed by an artist using a snowmobile, or it is the result of using some kind of mysterious art." "Jiuying, what do you think?" Not far away, Jiuying, carrying a long sword, stood next to Xiaowu's body. After the target killed Mr. Ruan, it was obvious that he had a conflict with this person here. Jiuying squatted down, wearing gloves, and fumbled on the body for a while. Then he took out a cell phone. He pressed the fingerprint lock with Xiaowu's finger. After unlocking it, Jiuying checked the phone. "He is from Shenghu Group, a blood descendant, numbered 6. Jiuying said, blood descendants below number 10 are not simple. This guy ranked 6th and died here. Now I'm a little glad that we didn't really fight him in the woods." Jiuying smiled bitterly. "He played us around. Who would have thought that he didn't run away after stealing our snowmobile, but came to the camp to kill Mr. Ruan." The two men lost Luo Yan and found that Luo Yan drove away their snowmobile, so they called the camp and asked the camp to send a snowmobile. When the car arrived, the bad news came. Ruan Xianfu was dead. So Jiuying and the others rushed back to the camp, and according to the clues left by Luo Yan, they went all the way to this place. Jiuying tightened the spear in his hand and asked, "What should we do now? Should we continue to hunt him down?" Jiuying shook his head. "It's meaningless. Mr. Ruan is dead, and Miss is dead too. Now Xianfu Group is leaderless. We have to go back to the headquarters and make plans early. As for that person, let Shenghu Group worry about it." Jiuying's face was gloomy. "I didn't expect that we would fail in a seemingly ordinary commission this time. If I had known this would happen, I shouldn't have paid attention to the commission from Shenghu Group at that time." Jiuying stood up, took off his gloves, and threw them on Xiaowu's body. "Let's go. We still have a lot to do." Jiuying nodded with the gun in his arms. The two left. Chapter 873 Punch Kill. It was already dark when we returned to the forest near the Blizzard base. After Luo Yan parked the car, he walked into the forest. He did not use lighting, fearing that the light would attract attention. Darkness has never been a big problem for him. After circles of silver appeared in his red eyes, the world became clear and transparent. When he came to the wooden house surrounded by messy trees, Luo Yan suddenly stopped. At his feet, a branch fell. Luo Yan noticed it because the cut of the branch was very smooth. His expression began to become solemn, and he saw some footprints further forward. Judging from the number of footprints, there were 4 people here, with a clear goal, heading towards the direction of the wooden house. When Luo Yan looked forward, a shadow rose above one of the footprints. Judging from the shadow, it was a woman, tall, wearing a long windbreaker, and walking lightly. When this shadow rose, different shadows also rose on the other footprints. but it was not difficult for Luo Yan to see these shadows. There are 2 women and 2 men here. In addition to the tall woman, there was another woman wearing a vest and camouflaged pants with a long knife across her waist. The 2 men were one slender and the other obese. The slender young man was handsome, with a white fox face. In the past, he would have been a star. As for the fat man, he looked very honest and was gnawing on a rabbit leg. It is worth noting that the rabbit leg was raw. At this time, the woman who was walking in the front, wearing a vest and a long knife on her waist, suddenly moved. Luo Yan watched her make various evasive movements, and along with her movements, the nearby trees and grass continued to explode. From the direction of the treehouse, there was a line of fire, and it seemed that someone was attacking from behind the bushes. However, the attack in the bushes did not have any effect. Not long after, these people had entered the bushes. Luo Yan followed these phantoms to the wooden house and saw the woman with a knife flash into the wooden house. The others stayed outside the wooden house. The woman wearing sunglasses was still talking to Behemoths. The 2 of them were talking and laughing, not taking the situation in front of them seriously at all. Luo Yan walked into the wooden house. There were also several illusory figures in the house. In addition to the woman with the knife, there were Yifei and Song Qiutang. In the house, Yifei held a pistol in his hand and pointed it at the woman with a knife. The boy shouted something and then fired at the woman with a knife. The woman ducked to avoid it, then slid on the ground. When she passed by Yifei, the long knife passed through Yifei's leg. The skin was immediately torn apart. Luo Yan also found a bloodstain where the phantom was. Then, the woman jumped up again and cut off 2 fingers of Yifei's hand holding the gun with a knife. Yifei's shadow retreated again and again, and the boy covered the broken fingers with his eyes full of bloodshot. But the woman did not intend to stop there. Luo Yang could see that she had a hideous smile on her face and walked towards Yifei with the long knife hanging down. Song Qiutang rushed up with a stick and hit him with it. The woman dodged and slapped Song Qiutang unconscious. Then she continued to walk towards Yifei. The long knife flashed. It stabbed into Yifei's shoulder socket, turned half a circle, and cut the muscle horizontally. The shadow of the boy looked painful and wanted to retreat, but the woman with the knife stepped on his foot. Then the woman raised her foot and stepped on Yifei's foot, breaking the boy's leg. Then she went behind Yifei and cut a long cut on the boy's back with a knife. Yifei's shadow finally fell to the ground. Where the shadow lay, Luo Yan saw a dark red blood stain. At this time, the people outside came in. The white fox-faced man picked up Song Qiutang, and the fat man picked up the Jiuying device next to him. Both of them turned around and left. Then the tall woman with sunglasses said something and left. Only Yifei and the woman with the knife were left in the wooden house. The woman looked around and found an iron hook with a long rope tied to it in the wooden house. She stabbed the iron hook into the wound on Yifei's back and then dragged the boy out of the wooden house. Luo Yan watched all this quietly, with no expression on the face in the mask. But his eyes became colder and colder. He stood up silently, carrying the dragon elephant, and walked out of the wooden house, watching Yifei's shadow being dragged by the woman. So Luo Yan saw the corresponding traces on the snow and blood. The other party had no intention of covering up these traces. Luo Yan followed these traces out of the bushes and came to an open space. On a poplar tree not far from the open space, Luo Yan saw Yifei. He was tied to the tree, and his head tilted to one side unnaturally. In the peeping silver eyes, Luo Yan could not see any light on him. "Mr. Luo, I want to learn how to drive a mecha from you." The boy's voice was still in his ears. Luo Yan raised his foot and walked towards Yifei. "Mr. Luo, if you have time, can you come to our place and play? Everyone, come on, this is Mr. Luo. It's him. He killed the giant beast yesterday, saved Captain Gongxiao, and saved us. I swear, I will make enough money, and then install a pair of prosthetic limbs for Xing, so that he can move freely like a normal child." Yifei's voice kept ringing in his mind. The boy who was full of fighting spirit and protected the orphans, even if he was not doing well. The brother who felt guilty about his brother and wanted his brother to stand up again. Now, he is hanging quietly on the poplar tree. Let the winter snow fall on his broken body little by little. Luo Yan suddenly stopped. because in front of him, there is a steel wire that is difficult to detect with the naked eye. If he goes forward, he will pull the steel wire, and then the grenade tied to Xing Feng's chest will explode. It will make the boy's already broken body even more unbearable. At this time, a figure walked out from behind Luoyan. It was the woman with short hair, wearing a vest and camouflaged pants, with a long knife across her waist. What a pity. You actually found me. I wanted to give you a surprise. Luoyan seemed not to notice that there was someone behind him. Looking at Xing Feng's body in the distance, he said calmly, "You should know that he has nothing to do with this. You should also know that he poses no threat to you. So I have a question. You can kill him, but why torture him?" The short-haired woman was Jiuying. She spread her hands. "That would be so boring. When I was a child, I discovered how pleasant it was to torture those lives that were weaker than me. It's a pity that in the past such things could not be done openly and had to be done secretly. But after the arrival of the giant beast disaster, everything changed. I love this world now. It allows me to torture others at will. I like to see them screaming and begging for mercy. But this little ghost is so stubborn. Not only does he not beg for mercy, he also refuses to reveal your whereabouts. Then there is no other way. I have to let him experience what hell is before he dies." Luoyan took off his mask and threw it on the snow. He finally turned around and stuck the dragon elephant into the snow. He began to walk towards Jiuying. Jiuying drew the knife behind her waist. "Don't you use that Han sword?" Luoyan said calmly. "No. The sword is too gentle. Once you are cut in the vital parts, you will die immediately. That would be too easy for you. So I plan to beat you to death with my fists. I will make sure you die from head to toe, from inside to outside, without a single piece of good flesh left." Chapter 874 Determination. "You're going to beat me to death with your fists?" Jiuying laughed as if she had heard some incredible joke. She laughed so hard that tears came out, and she had to wipe her eyes. "You really made me laugh. Really, I haven't heard such a funny joke in a long time. How long did it take you to kill those people in Wu Village? If it were me, it would only take 5 minutes. You should have taken more than 5 minutes. Besides." Jiuying's eyes turned cold. "Don't treat me as a waste like Keddy." Luoyan ignored her. He just analyzed Jiuying's surface veins and embedded the analyzed data into the Prophet to improve the data of the light body model. Jiuying held the long sword in reverse, lowered her center of gravity, and suddenly swept like the wind. Her figure flickered left and right, changing unpredictably. This is a footwork she is very good at, which can be used to disrupt the opponent's judgment. She didn't think Luoyan could see through it. Sure enough, the opponent's eyes did not move, as if he couldn't keep up with her speed. It's a waste after all. It's just that it is set off by some more useless garbage, so it seems difficult to deal with. As this thought was turning, Jiuying had already circled to the blind spot of Luoyan's vision, and the long knife slashed at Luoyan's arm. She could have changed her target, such as the neck, but she didn't want to end the battle so quickly. For her, this was a rare entertainment. Suddenly, something strange happened. Just as Jiuying was about to cut Luoyan with her knife, the latter seemed to have noticed something in advance and turned sideways in accordance with the angle of the long knife. Then the tip of the knife passed in front of Luoyan. Jiuying's pupils expanded. At the same time, Luoyan's sight finally fell on her. Then a fist with a storm-like, piercing sound whistled, hitting Jiuying's shoulder. Dense and crisp bone-breaking sounds rang out, and Jiuying saw her shoulder deformed instantly, and dozens of thin blood arrows spurted out from the squeezed and torn muscles. The hand holding the knife immediately lost strength, and the long knife fell on the snow. Jiuying retreated violently. In an instant, she was nearly 100 steps away from Luoyan. She looked at her shoulder, and she could feel that all the bones in her shoulder were broken. Even with high precision repair surgery, it is difficult to restore to its original appearance. The woman looked at Luoyan again. Her eyes had become alert. Perhaps, he is not as simple as I thought. Luoyan then put down his fist and continued to walk towards Jiuying, not hurriedly or slowly, but his eyes were always on Jiuying, and he refused to move away for a second. In this affectionate gaze, Han Ying hummed, and her short hair suddenly grew inch by inch, and in the blink of an eye, it was almost touching the snow. Pieces of red bones appeared on her body, they bit each other, and in a very solid combination, covered and protected various important parts of Han Ying's body. The shoulder that was smashed by Luo Yan's punch just now was also repaired and restored under the action of a strange force. Han Ying's hands stretched and deformed, her palms doubled in size, and her 10 fingers were hung with shining claw blades. Finally, orange-yellow lines appeared on her body, and sparks floated out of these lines. The scorching breath caused the nearby ice and snow to begin to melt, turning into streams of clear water. I take back what I said just now. You are not an opponent that can be fooled casually. From now on, I will seriously kill you. Luo Yan was unmoved, but as he walked, pieces of grey-blue dragon scales appeared on his body. A golden vertical line appeared in his red eyes, which suddenly made his eyes look like the eyes of some cold-blooded animal. An illusory curved horn rose from his forehead, and a demonic red light shone between the 10 fingers of his hands. When even the clothes on his chest were illuminated by a ball of blood, Luo Yan exuded a strong murderous intent and hostility. It was like an ancient beast waking up from a long sleep, opening his eyes and looking around. Han Ying immediately felt a tightness in her chest, as if a mountain was pressing on her body and she couldn't breathe. She clearly felt that the holy blood in her body, given by that adult, had encountered some unknown and inexplicable suppression. This made her whole body shudder, and then she screamed, "Are you a holy descendant?" This was the only explanation she could think of, and she thought the same thing as Xiao Wu. Luo Yan had no intention of answering her question. Now, he just wanted to beat this woman to death. Han Ying read Luo Yan's mind from her eyes, and she lowered her center of gravity, like a provoked female beast. Her hair that reached the ground fluttered slightly, and each strand exploded. At the same time, wisps of blood-colored breath, like smoke, escaped from the gaps between the bone armor plates on Han Ying's body. The blood was fluttering, like wolf smoke. These wolf smoke spread out, and filled around Han Ying. When the sparks around her floated into the blood smoke, the two combined. Those sparks seemed to ignite the blood, boom, boom, and balls of orange flames rose. Then the flames took the shape of wolves, and one by one, the flaming wolves walked out of the wolf smoke, and came to Han Ying's side. Like guarding the head wolf, they surrounded Han Ying. As soon as Han Ying thought about it, the fire wolves rushed out of the smoke, swept across the snow, melted the ice and snow, and rushed towards Luo Yan fiercely. Luo Yan's eyes were grim, and he didn't waste time to dodge, and rushed directly. As he ran, it was unknown whether the dragon blood essence was affected by his determination, or became interested in Han Ying. Anyway, amber light emanated from the gaps between Luo Yan's scales, and condensed into the shadow of a huge lizard dragon behind him. The lizard dragon opened its mouth and roared silently, and the charging fire wolves seemed to be affected, and their bodies all froze. Luo Yan rushed through the wolf pack. Then the wolf pack reacted, and turned around to chase him. One of the fire wolves ran the fastest. Suddenly it jumped up, landed on Luo Yan, and opened its mouth to bite. The moment it bit Luo Yan, the fire wolf suddenly shrank into a ball of orange fire. The next second, the fireball exploded violently, blasting the nearby snow into powder and the branches of the surrounding trees into a mess, shaking off the snow. However, Luo Yan rushed out of the flames and smoke with an expressionless face. The explosion of the flame wolf only blew his clothes to pieces, but it could not do anything to the corpse chill armor strengthened by the Shibi corpse blood essence. The cold air emitted by the corpse chill armor quickly extinguished the scorching flames brought by the flame wolf's self-explosion. In Han Ying's horrified eyes, Luo Yan swung his fist again. The fist quickly expanded in Han Ying's field of vision. Then a bloody wolf smoke blocked her and Luo Yan. A lion's roar suddenly sounded in the wolf smoke. The roar made Luo Yan feel slightly uncomfortable, and as the shadow of the lizard dragon behind him roared silently into the wolf smoke, the discomfort disappeared. Then Luo Yan punched the lion whose head rushed out of the wolf smoke. The lion's body was condensed by blood, with clear lines and a distinct image. But after being hit by Luo Yan's punch, the lion immediately collapsed. Luo Yan's fist broke out from the collapsing blood and energy, and his momentum did not decrease, still hitting Han Ying. Chapter 875 Rest in Peace. Facing Luo Yan's fierce punch, all Han Ying could do was to raise her hands, put her arms together, and block Luo Yan's iron fist. The punch came. The moment she was hit, Han Ying's whole body shook violently, and her teeth kept colliding because of the violent vibration. For a moment, Han Ying suspected that all the bones in her body would be shattered. However, it was not. It was just that the dark red bone armor on her forearms was covered with fine cracks where Luo Yan hit her, and then blood spurted out from these cracks. Han Ying screamed, and she clearly felt that the arm bones of her hands had been smashed. The next second, her arms also bent into a strange arc and separated to the left and right uncontrollably. Han Ying flew backwards and crashed into a big tree before stopping. She felt short of breath and adjusted after a while. At this time, the wolves had caught up with Luo Yan. They bit Luo Yan's shoulders, arms, and thighs. Then they curled up into a fireball and exploded. Explosions occurred one after another. Flames continued to burst and rise, and steam and smoke made the scene chaotic. But Luo Yan walked out of the flames, steam, and smoke with a firm step. He was like a demon god who could not be killed no matter what. Impossible. Han Ying screamed and jumped up, ignoring her deformed arms, and leaning forward slightly. The blood energy released from her body became more intense. When Luo Yan approached, blood snakes suddenly shot out from the blood energy. These blood snakes pounced on Luo Yan, and the number was so large that it was daunting. In a blink of an eye, Luo Yan seemed to fall into a snake cave. Looking around, blood snakes gathered and entangled, like boiling and bubbling mud. Dense and ferocious blood snakes surrounded Luo Yan, covering his body, biting every inch of his body crazily. Han Ying laughed. This is her specialty. The target attacked by her 10,000 snakes devouring the body has never survived, and all the flesh and blood will be devoured, leaving only a skeleton. But at this time, she was halfway through laughing when she suddenly saw that the movements of some blood snakes became visibly slow. Then, the evil snakes formed by blood and ki froze the grey-blue frost on their bodies. This grey-blue color continued to appear on the snake cave and spread rapidly. Finally, it became a piece. Crackling. The frozen blood snakes made crisp sounds inside, and fine cracks appeared on the surface. In the end, the whole snake cave was covered with cracks, and Luo Yan rushed out of the snake cave like the wind. Han Ying finally showed a trace of fear in her eyes. She screamed and kicked Luo Yan who was rushing towards her. When she kicked, she already brought a thrilling howl. There is no doubt. If Han Ying kicked an ordinary person, it would be enough to kick him to pieces. But her opponent was Luo Yan. Luo Yan had a blank expression on his face, as if he had already noticed it in advance. When Han Ying kicked, he leaned to the side. Han Ying's kick missed immediately. Luo Yan took the opportunity to catch her foot, clenched his other hand into a fist, and smashed it on Han Ying's calf. Ah! Han Ying screamed miserably, and her calf was immediately deformed. Even with the bone armor covering it, it couldn't change this fact. Looking at a sharp leg bone exposed to the air, Han Ying's eyes widened, with anger, fear, regret, unwillingness and other emotions mixed in her eyes. She screamed. She burst out with all her strength. Blood and energy gushed out like money. In this sudden burst of rich blood and energy, flaming wolves, blood snakes, red lions, and even various wild beasts kept rushing out like a gusher. This was Han Ying's trump card, the dance of all beasts. Immediately, this sudden burst of beasts pushed Luo Yan back again and again. In the beast tide, the flame wolf exploded, the blood snake bit, the red lion clawed, and the blood eagle, flame leopard, red sheep and other beasts launched different forms of attacks. In such an impact, Luo Yan retreated 100 meters before he stood still. Then he began to swim upstream. He crushed the flame wolf. He froze the blood snake to death. He smashed the red lion. As long as it rushed in front of Luo Yan, no matter what kind of beast it was, Luo Yan killed it easily. His firm steps were not shaken. No one cheered for the figure swimming upstream. However, it frightened Han Ying deeply. "Don't come over," the woman suddenly whispered in a low voice. Then she screamed. "Don't come over. Don't come over." She was scared. Playing with the weak in the posture of the strong is her favorite entertainment program. But if she became a weak person and became the object of play, Obviously, she would not be happy at all. Not only would she not be happy, she would even be afraid. Just like now. Her screams echoed in the woods, but Luo Yan turned a deaf ear. He tore through the beast tide and came to Han Ying's side. His red eyes were grim and his golden pupils flashed with cruelty. Wait a minute. Han Ying wanted to say something, but Luo Yan had already kicked her. He kicked her on the remaining intact leg. Han Ying was immediately kicked up by Luo Yan, and she rolled in the air for several weeks before falling on the snow. Then her body sank. It turned out that Luo Yan was riding on her. Luo Yan raised his arms and clenched his fists. He punched suddenly. Crack. Han Ying's knee was shattered and bloody. She screamed and screamed, "Don't kill me. Your companion is still in the hands of Beiyun and others. I can help you save him." The second punch came. Crack. The only intact leg, the calf bone, was completely shattered at this time, and the calf was deformed. Then the third punch, the fourth punch, and the fifth punch. Luo Yan silently swung his fists, hitting Han Ying's body one punch after another, firmly fulfilling his promise. After Han Ying's lower limbs were shattered, the hip bones in the pelvis were also shattered. Then came the ribs, thoracic vertebrae, sternum, clavicle, and shoulder blades. The beastly form gave Han Ying a strong vitality. Now only her head was intact. The rest of her body had been shattered, but she still hadn't died. But if possible, she wanted to die now, so that she wouldn't have to look at Luo Yan. She slowly raised her fist, and then the iron fist with grey-blue scales on the tip of her fist gave her the final blow. "No!" she screamed. The scream was interrupted by the iron fist buried in her head. Bang! Under the iron fist, Han Ying's face was completely changed. There was no place to bury her body. The grey light of her life disappeared. The shadow of the lizard dragon happily devoured the animal blood in Han Ying's body. Luo Yan pulled his fist out of the mud, shook off the dirt on his fist, and stood up. He looked at Yifei in the distance. After a moment, Yifei was put down from the tree by him. The boy's body was cold, his skin was pale, and his eyes were wide open. Rest in peace. Luo Yan closed the boy's eyes gently, as if afraid of hurting him. Chapter 876, Night Sword. The night was as dark as ink, and you couldn't see your hand in front of you. So when the phone screen lit up, the light that pierced the darkness of the car made Song Qiutang open her eyes. But she couldn't speak, or even move. After being taken out of the wooden house by those people, she was gagged with tape and tied up. "Hello." Beiyun put the phone to her ear, and heard a male voice in the receiver. "How are you doing now?" It was Su Jingyuan. Even if she was unwilling in her heart, Su Jingyuan was now in charge of the affairs on the surface of the earth under the banner of that adult. Even if Beiyun was unwilling in every way, she could only say it. "We have brought back Song Qiutang and the Jiuying device. But for some reason, our target is not with this woman. But it doesn't matter, he will definitely come back. We will do the work for him, and wait for him to come." Su Jingyuan said decisively, "Bring Song Qiutang and Jiuying back first. As for the target, it's not too late to kill it later." Beiyun was no longer wearing sunglasses. She looked out the window and said, "We will leave tomorrow morning." Su Jingyuan was not too unkind, and asked them to leave now. "Okay, you guys be careful. Remember, Song Qiutang and Jiuying have the highest priority, the others can be delayed." Beiyun replied lazily, "Got it." After hanging up the phone, Beiyun put down the phone and snorted softly. On the other side of the car, a soft light lit up in the darkness, illuminating Jiang Yiming's handsome face. Han Ying didn't come back. Beiyun sat up straight and threw a thick blanket on Song Qiutang. She would still take good care of this important person. She opened the car door herself and went outside. Although there was no wind or snow tonight, the temperature dropped to below zero at night, and it was still so cold that people's teeth were chattering. Of course, Beiyun's teeth would not chatter. He just rubbed his hands, blew a breath, walked to a snow pile and kicked it. "Fatty, you are not frozen to death, right?" The snow pile fell apart with a crash. The honest-looking fatty blinked, shook his head, and then sucked his thumb. Before he could speak, he heard Beiyun say, "If you dare to say you are hungry, I will sew your mouth shut and you will never be able to eat again." Fatty lowered his head aggrievedly. Next to him, there were some bones piled up, which could be roughly assembled into a deer. Jiang Yiming also got out of the car. closed the door, and came to the snow outside the car wrapped in a thick coat. "Captain, how about I go and call Han Jiuying back?" Bae-yun stood in the snow, took out a pack of cigarettes, took out one and lit it. A small red dot soon appeared in the dark night, blowing out a smoke ring. Bae-yun shook his head. "No need, Han Jiuying hasn't come back for so long. Either she's dead, or the target hasn't appeared. If she's dead, you go find her. It's like delivering food. If the target doesn't appear, she will come back tomorrow morning." Bae-yun seemed a little irritable, hugging his hands, one foot shaking non-stop. "It's very likely that the stinky girl is dead. I've been feeling uneasy since just now. You all have to be alert. Maybe the target is nearby now." Jiuying laughed. "Captain, aren't you too nervous? Even if the target killed Han Jiuying, can he still find us?" On the way here, I carefully cleaned up the traces. Suddenly at this moment, a strong wind blew from the darkness, blowing the snow powder into the air. Almost at the same time, a golden light flashed in the distance, like a ray of sunshine in the dark night. Pang Bao, who had been silent all the time, suddenly opened his eyes wide, stood up suddenly, and pushed Jiuying away. Before Baehua's face could figure out what was happening, he saw a faint golden rainbow light passing by his eyes. The strong wind blew his hair in disorder, and the long coat on his body, to keep warm, was almost blown away by the strong wind. The golden light passed through Pang Bao's arms, and before the light disappeared, a fat hand had fallen to the ground. It hurt so much. Tears welled up in the corners of Pang Bao's eyes, and he quickly grabbed his hand on the snow, and pressed it back to the broken end. Hot green smoke rose from the place where the broken arm was connected, and in a blink of an eye, his broken hand was connected. The fat man moved his arm and his arm returned to normal. Jiuying realized that he had just been attacked. If Pang Bao hadn't suddenly pushed him away, the golden rainbow light with incredible cutting power would have cut him in half. He was frightened and looked forward along the snow ditch torn by the golden rainbow. He saw a little light flickering where the rainbow came from. Bae-yun threw the remaining cigarette on the snow and said in a deep voice, "Go turn on the headlights." Jiuying hurried back to the snowmobile, reached into the cab, and turned on the headlights. Suddenly, a bright light appeared behind Bae-yun. With this light, she saw a figure walking towards her from a distance in the snow. The figure seemed to be dragging something in his hand. When he came nearby, he suddenly raised his hand and threw it. Bang! A twisted, almost unhuman body fell on the snow in front of Bae-yun. Jiuying, who came back, saw the headless body and gasped. He recognized it from the clothes on the body. It was Han Jiuying. "Is this your companion?" The figure's voice was indifferent. Under the light, Bae-yun and the other two saw clearly that it was a black-haired man. He was very young, in his early 20s. If he had been in the disaster, he would have been a college student. His eyes were red, his clothes were torn, and he was holding a long sword. Standing in the wind, his flying black hair was like a dark flame burning quietly. Jiuying regained his composure at this time, and a smile appeared on his face. "You killed Han Jiuying, and you dared to come here." Luo Yan hummed and pointed at the snowmobile in the distance behind them. "You captured my people, and took my things. So I have to take them back." Jiuying was stunned when he heard it, and felt that Luo Yan was taking it for granted. He couldn't help laughing. As he laughed, he felt humiliated. Because Luo Yan wanted to take people and things back from their hands. Do they think they are dead? Luo Yan's sight first fell on Bae-yun, and then glanced at Pang Bao. Bae-yun was the strongest of the three, so Luo Yan naturally paid more attention to him. As for this fat man, Luo Yan originally thought he was the weakest, but he was the first one among the three to sense his killing intention and react. Don't judge a person by his appearance, that's what this situation is all about. As for Jiuying, Luo Yan never looked at him from beginning to end. "You want to take things from us, that depends on how capable you are," Bae-yun said in a cold tone. "Okay." Luo Yan answered very straightforwardly. He also acted very straightforwardly. The footwork of dragonfly skimming the water made him flash in front of Jiuying, and the dragon elephant that had been unsheathed at some point was deeply buried in the chest of Baehua's face. "The first one," Luo Yan said calmly. "If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. we cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 877 1 vs 3. You actually. Jiang Yiming's eyes widened with a ferocious expression. He didn't expect that the first person Luo Yan chose to kill was him. Now it's still him. It's the same twice. As the saying goes, you have to pick the softest persimmon. It's obvious that Luo Yan treats him as a soft persimmon. As a descendant of the holy blood, Jiang Yiming won't die like this. He slapped the dragon elephant sword with both hands and suddenly retreated violently, bringing up a puff of blood. Luo Yan was also a little surprised. In his opinion, Jiang Yiming was the weakest of the three. Originally thought that he would take the white fox in the face by surprise. Unexpectedly, he was stabbed in the chest and was still able to move. The problem should be the beast blood in their bodies, just like his dragon blood essence. Even if there are no scales, using the dragon transformation posture, the body is much stronger than ordinary people. Beiyun's long hair was flying in the wind, and she shouted, "Don't underestimate the enemy, use the sanctification posture." After that, she slapped Luo Yan with one hand, shook the air palm. The air was like thunder, and Luo Yan suddenly felt that an invisible wave was rushing towards him. Dragon elephant chopped. Boom. The air exploded, forming an impact, and the sword of dragon elephant trembled slightly. Take this opportunity. Beiyun and the other two consumed the so-called holy blood in their bodies and showed an inhuman posture. Jiang Yiming's skin turned pale in an instant, and a large and small blood red spot appeared on his body. His hair faded from black to silver, but black lines like spider webs appeared on his body, connecting all the red spots. The wounds on Beihua's face and chest healed quickly. He fell to the ground, crawled quickly like a spider, came behind Luo Yan, and raised his hand to sweep the ground. Zilla. The ground cracked, and the cracks circled around Luo Yan. Then, black silk threads rose up, woven into a net, and shrunk towards Luo Yan. This is one of Jiang Yiming's specialties, drawing a prison on the ground. This prison can not only control the opponent, but it keeps shrinking. Once it is tightly entangled by those black threads, they will cut the opponent. Armor, mystical arts, flesh. No matter what, they will be tightened and cut. In the end, the opponent will be turned into pieces. Jiang Yiming seemed to be able to imagine Luo Yan turning into pieces. He grinned and said, "You deserve it." But at this time, Luo Yan suddenly emerged with a blood-colored flame. At the same time, Jiang Yiming felt a surge of blood in his body. Immediately, a faint blood-colored breath emanated from his eyes and nose, turning into wisps of blood-colored smoke, and cast towards the blood-colored flame on Luo Yan's body. Not only him, but also Beiyun and Fatty Bao were like this. Especially the fat man. The blood color emanating from his body was thick and abundant, and once it was thrown into the blood flame on Luo Yan's body, the blood flame immediately blasted and burned fiercely. The 5th level of blood transformation sutra. Luo Yan used this skill to absorb the blood energy of the three people, to replenish the consumption of a belt of long rainbow before. Then dragon elephant swept across. The tip of the sword tore a circle of blood light and tore open Jiang Yiming's prison. At this time, Beiyun and Fatty Bao had completed the beast transformation. Beiyun's original black hair now turned pink, and her skin became pale like Jiang Yiming. There was no bone armor like Han Jiuying, but blood red lines appeared on the pale body. Those lines all exuded a blood-colored aura, and they condensed into the shape of bat wings behind Beiyun. Finally, Beiyun's brown eyes turned into golden eyes, and a pair of golden eyes shone with dazzling light in the dark night. She shouted loudly and clapped her palms in succession. It was also the empty shock palm, but in this state, the invisible and intangible palm power no longer exploded immediately, but was distributed on the snow like a landmine, spreading throughout the surrounding space. Only Beiyun could know the location of these invisible palm powers, and they would explode once Luo Yan touched them. Or if Luo Yan went deep into the thunder pool, she could also take the initiative to detonate them. At the same time, the bloody bat wings behind Beiyun shook, and suddenly a layer of strange fluctuations was shaken off. It spread out, covering the snow, forming a kind of domain. Silent mind domain. In this domain, all sounds will be located and detected by Beiyun. This allows it to accurately evade attacks and improve the accuracy of its own movements. At the same time, it can also share the effect of sound positioning with Jiuying and Fatty Bayo, greatly improving the perception of the two. Fatty Bayo's body was covered with blood red and heavy bone armor, especially on his chest and 2 arms, where the bone armor was large and thick. This made the fat man look like he was wearing a blood red thick armor and equipped with 2 huge bone shields. He looked even more clumsy in this state. He did not participate in the attack, but just approached Beiyun, as if he wanted to act as Beiyun's guard. Luoyan ignored what tactics they wanted to use, and directly used the blood essence obtained from Yaoniu last time. Suddenly, thunder rumbled in the dark sky. The next second, a dazzling lightning flashed down, and exploded on Jiuying, who rushed towards Luoyan. Jiuying screamed, and was directly struck by the lightning. His silver white hair was charred and curled back, his clothes were broken and charred, and his pale skin appeared red. He rolled on the snow for a while, and then he got up again. At this time, more lightning flashes continued to fall, carrying the breath of destruction, and lightning poured down densely, turning into a forest of thunder to suppress the battlefield. The mines that Beiyun had arranged with the Zankan palm suddenly became useless, and were constantly exploded by lightning. As for Beiyun, she was now hiding on the bone shield that the fat man held high above his head. Fatty was constantly trembling from the thunder, but he was not blown apart. His blood-colored thick armor had amazing defensive power, and blocked the thunder torrent from the shaking bull blood essence. Luoyan narrowed his eyes, and adjusted his tactics in his mind. Soon the effect of the shaking bull blood essence ended, and the scene was blown into potholes. Jiuying had already run away to avoid the thunder. Fatty took the thunder and lightning, and although he didn't die, his body was shaking constantly. Beiyun, who was safe and sound, flashed out from behind the fat man, with a golden light flashing in his eyes, and raised his hand to shoot at Luoyan again. But this time, it was not the Zankan palm that was used, but another palm technique, the chaos palm. Although there was only a difference of 1 word, the effect was very different. This was a variation of the Zankan palm. With 1 palm shot, the airflow in the entire space was aroused, turning into a surging undercurrent rushing towards Luoyan. The undercurrent changed in all directions, from east to west, and attacked from directions that Luoyan could not expect. After Luoyan dodged several times with his footwork, he glanced at the fat man who was still twitching. The shadow under the fat man's face suddenly moved, and then a shadow quickly swept up along his feet. Sword Shadow. Chapter 878. Many methods. The headlights of the snowmobile created conditions for the existence of the shadow. Otherwise, Luoyan would not be able to use the Sword Shadow. At this time, the Sword Shadow passed through the blood-red thick armor on Pang Bao's body, bringing up a string of sparks. Beiyun, who was attacking Luoyan, accidentally glanced at it, turned her head, and saw a black spot on Pang Bao's eyes that were not protected by bone armor. Pang Bao immediately screamed. He covered his eyes and rolled on the snow. It hurts. It hurts. My eyes hurt so much. Blood spread out from the fat man's fingers, dripped onto the snow, and bloomed into shocking plum blossoms. Beiyun's heart sank, and she looked at Luoyan fiercely, only to feel that this person had many means, one after another. Thinking of this, her murderous intent became stronger. She said in a deep voice, "Yiming, cooperate with me. We must kill this guy as soon as possible." Yiming nodded, crawling on the snow like some kind of insect, and swept towards Luoyan. On the other side, Luoyan waved the dragon elephant, creating several blood-colored ripples, and used his sword energy to disperse the undercurrent of the chaos palm. He turned around suddenly, and his figure flashed in front of Yiming with the dragonfly touching the water. The dragon elephant sword flipped, and casually swung out one after another of fierce sword lights, to cover Beihua's face. Yiming was scared by Luoyan's beating, and immediately waved his hands, and rotated his body. His 10 fingers on both hands brought out black silk threads, wrapping himself layer by layer. He was cocooning himself, but when Luoyan's fierce sword lights hit Yiming's cocoon, they collided with dense clinking sounds of metal. Those seemingly fragile silk threads were so hard when woven together, which was really surprising. Seeing that Jiang Yiming's cocoon could not be pierced in a short time, Luo Yan raised his foot and kicked Jiang Yiming and the cocoon away. Jiang Yiming felt dizzy and didn't know how far he was kicked by Luo Yan. After kicking Jiang Yiming away, Luo Yan used the secret method KO and wheel. The blood-red flames that were already roaring and rising were now like a volcanic eruption. Luo Yan's aura instantly climbed to another level. He turned around and slashed at Beiyun without thinking. The blood-red rainbow flashed on the snow. A few pink hairs flew in the air. They were cut off by the long rainbow. With the effect of silent mind domain, Beiyun avoided in time, and then the blood in her body roared. She burned the holy blood and turned it into a surging force that roared in her blood vessels. Beiyun punched out, shattering fist. Starting from her fist, the space between her and Luo Yan suddenly appeared with fine cracks. The air froze. Suddenly, a sound like ice breaking sounded, dense and layered. The space between the two expanded slightly, and then thousands of streams of light sprayed out, as if the void was shattered by Beiyun's punch. Luo Yan's dragon scales appeared in time, but even so, not only did his clothes explode into thousands of butterflies, but his face, chest and other parts were torn into tiny holes by the white and gold streams of light. Beiyun narrowed her eyes slightly. The opponent's strength once again shook her mind. The boxing skills that can only be used by burning holy blood are enough to rival the ultimate skills, but unexpectedly, it only caused Luo Yan hundreds of shallow wounds. How could she not be shocked? Luo Yan looked at the wounds on his body and suddenly used the dragon transformation posture. Suddenly, pieces of grey-blue scales rushed out one after another, emitting cold corpse gas. The illusory curved horns rose from the middle of his forehead, and golden vertical lines appeared in his eyes. Blood pupils and evil claws appeared one by one. Luo Yan was like a demon god walking out of Shura hell at this time, and the murderous aura he naturally exuded was earth-shattering. Beiyun and Jiang Yiming, who had just emerged, both felt a heavy feeling in their chests, as if a huge mountain was pressing down on them. The holy blood bestowed by that adult became listless, as if it was under great suppression. Is this the sanctification posture? Why are you? The two's reactions were exactly the same as Han Ying's Wu's. Luo Yan naturally would not explain. He directly used the red scale blood essence. At this time, a strong wind happened to blow, and Luo Yan stretched out his hand to catch it in the wind. Suddenly, the strong wind changed direction, surrounded Luo Yan, and turned into a bird formed by airflow. Wind bird. Luo Yan waved his hand, and the wind bird flapped its wings and flew towards Jiang Yiming. Jiang Yiming just realized that something was wrong, and the wind bird flapped its wings, and a stream of air as sharp as a blade immediately slashed towards Jiang Yiming. Jiang Yiming used the special effects of the silent mind domain to sense the direction and number of the air blades. He shouted and waved his hands, bringing up strands of black silk threads to weave a large net to stop the air blades. He screamed at the same time. It's the wind bird. How could he use the special technique of number 6? This question, Beiyun didn't know, and even if she knew, she wouldn't have the time to answer. After Luo Yan released the wind bird, he grabbed the ground again. In the pits that were previously blasted out of the thunder forest by the shaking bull blood essence, electric snakes kept jumping up and jumped into Luo Yan's hands, entangled together, and formed a ball of lightning. Luo Yan pressed this ball of lightning in the direction of Beiyun, and the lightning stretched and deformed, turning into a dragon beast shaking its head and tail. Thunder Dragon. Beiyun took a deep breath. After the wind bird, Luo Yan used the thunder dragon again, which made Beiyun feel heavy. The thunder dragon flew over, swung its long tail, and whipped Beiyun. Beiyun leaned back, watching the long tail with crackling electric light sweeping over her. When she straightened up again, the thunder dragon pounced over with its fangs and claws bared, and immediately entangled Beiyun. For a moment, Beiyun and Jiang Yiming were entangled by two strange beasts created by strange arts. In this way, Luo Yan could move freely. So relying on the silent mind domain, Beiyun tried to get rid of the thunder dragon, while clearly hearing Luo Yan rushing towards Pang Bao. Pang Bao only got up at this time. He closed his eyes and groped around. His eyes were cut by the sword shadow. However, in the silent mind domain, he could feel Luo Yan pounce on him. So the fat man honestly put the two shields in front of him, and at the same time, a layer of blood light surged in his body. His blood light was turbid and sticky. It was like a layer of lard smeared on the fat man's body, giving people the feeling that it was difficult to tear it apart. But Luo Yan did not stop there. With a dragonfly touch of water, he came behind the fat man. Although the fat man could use the silent mind domain to locate and perceive, this was not his ability after all, so his reaction was naturally much slower. When he realized that Luo Yan was behind him, the dragon elephant had already chopped down. In an instant, the fat man suddenly opened his eyes, and his eyes, which were still surging with blood, were full of fear. Because he felt that at this moment, Luo Yan behind him was full of murderous aura. The murderous aura that seemed to be real made him feel that he had been killed. Chapter 879, Sound transformed into needles. In Fatty Bao's mind, a rolling wave seemed to rise behind him. The black wave made the world pale in comparison. In that black wave, a hand sword slowly fell. Blood is the fuel, and murderous spirit is the fire. The two are the driving force of the unique skill. One kill every 10 steps. On the other side of the snow, Jiuying finally strangled the wind bird with his black silk thread. Beiyun also used the Zhenkang Palm and Luankang Palm to blast the thunder dragon. The two immediately looked at the fat man. Then they saw the fat man flying up. The turbid and sticky blood on his body flew away, and the heavy blood armor all over his body shattered. The sticky blood gushed out from the fat man's back, and even from all over his body. Large waves of blood were sprinkled on the snow, and melted into the ice and snow. Fatty Bao fell on his back, and was pressed into the ice and snow, motionless. Beiyun and Jiuying's minds were blank. They naturally knew that Fatty was the toughest among them. After he took out the holy transformation posture, cultivators below the Tangxuan realm could hardly do anything to him. But now, the fat man was actually broken by a sword? How is this possible? Luo Yan retracted his gaze from the fat man. The meat shield of Beiyun's group was now dimming, and the blood was rapidly decreasing and falling, constantly moving towards the number 0. Luo Yan was quite surprised that the fat man was not chopped apart by a sword. You know, at that time in the Chunyu base, he was also in the transformation dragon posture, and also killed every 10 steps. At that time, he chopped the ghost general into pieces with a sword. This shows how rough the fat man's skin is, how thick his flesh is, how difficult the blood light and bone armor that protect his body are. But now, he finally fell. Without him, Beiyun and the others would have no shelter. No longer looking at the fat man who turned into a bloody man, Luo Yan walked towards the remaining two. Beiyun showed a solemn look, and she suddenly opened her mouth, but no sound came out. But in Luo Yan's silver eyes, he clearly saw a thin transparent needle as thin as an ox's hair heading straight for his chest. If he hadn't opened the divine treasure, he would have missed this extremely small and silent attack. Dragon elephant swung to his chest. Ding. With a crisp sound, Luo Yan's body shook. A white dot appeared on the sword of the Han sword. Beiyun narrowed her eyes. Just now, she used the special ability of the sanctification posture, sound capture into needles. Shouting, snapping fingers, any action that can make a sound can be used to activate this ability. After the ability is activated, the sound will be captured and used. Compressed into a thin needle, invisible and silent, killing people in the blink of an eye. In the past, Beiyun used this ability, and was always successful. But today, for some reason, the opponent saw through, and blocked it the first time she used it. She couldn't help but frown. Then she winked at Jiuying, and the two rushed towards Luo Yan. Beiyun kept using the empty shock palm and chaos palm while running, interspersed with the sound captured into needles, tearing Luo Yan's perception to the greatest extent. Jiuying, on the other hand, circled around Luo Yan with black threads on his fingers, leaving circles of black threads on the snow, paving the way for the upcoming killing move. But Luo Yan did not intend to let them arrange it calmly. The blood pupil on his chest shone brightly, burning the dragon blood essence, to devour the blood essence from Jiuying, and suddenly blood mist like wolf smoke continued to emerge around Luo Yan's body. Bloody wolf smoke. Beiyun and Jiuying's eyes widened. Beihua's face shouted even more. This time it's Hong Ying's ability. This bastard. Why can he use other people's abilities? Just as he was talking, something rushed out of the bloody wolf smoke. The head was as big as a bucket, like a lizard or a dragon. It was the fierce beast lizard dragon. Luo Yan was also a little surprised. Originally, it thought that the beasts formed by blood and ki would be the flame wolf and blood lion, but it condensed into lizard dragons. This was obviously because of the dragon blood essence. After the lizard dragon rushed out, it went straight to Jiuying. While it was still on the way, it opened its mouth, and the blood and ki in it roared and gathered, forming a ball, and suddenly ejected it, hitting Jiuying. The blood-colored shell exploded. Jiuying screamed and flew out. His body was stained with a layer of blood and ki, and that layer of blood and ki kept drilling into Jiuying's body like ants and maggots, invading his body and cutting his flesh and blood. Jiuying screamed in pain. The blood and ki lizard dragon took the opportunity to swim quickly and entangle Jiuying. Beiyun was horrified and used sound into needles repeatedly to shoot invisible thin needles at Luo Yan. With the help of peeping silver eyes, Luo Yan saw all the sound wave needles. And because the relationship of Beiyun was analyzed at the beginning, now that the analysis is complete, Luo Yan embedded these data into the light body model and was able to predict Beiyun's behavior immediately. He took strange steps, unfolded his footwork, and avoided Beiyun's attack with Daozu and crossing Yi. Then he turned and pounced, and the dragon elephant sword was raised, rushing towards Beiyun with murderous intent. The 24 solar term sword, Li Dong attacked in one move. Beiyun suddenly felt the cold air all around. This was not only because of the influence of Luo Yan's sword, but also because the corpse cold armor continued to emit cold corpse cold. Li Dong was the start of the winter sword. After the sword was used, Luo Yan used the solar term sword such as minor snow, heavy snow, and winter solstice one by one. Coupled with the ubiquitous corpse cold breath, Beiyun's long pink hair soon hung with white frost, and the flow of power in the body, the blood and even the movements, etc. began to be affected. Her palms flew. Zhen Kang palm and Luan Kang palm were used alternately. Various forms of ki energy constantly collided with the coldness of Luo Yan's sword. The two of them attacked each other for dozens of rounds in a blink of an eye. The snow around them was blown away by the ki energy, forming a ball of snow and wind that whistled continuously. In the wind and snow, two figures intertwined and interacted. If there were spectators nearby at this time, they would definitely be dazzled. In the fierce battle, Beiyun found an opportunity to stick to Luo Yan and raised his palm to slap him. However, Luo Yan anticipated it in advance and took a step to the left, allowing Beiyun to slap him in the air. No, it was not really slapped in the air. A snowflake just fell in front of Beiyun's palm. It was slapped into pieces by Beiyun. However, there was a strange force that suddenly burst out through the snowflakes and hit Luo Yan's body. Luo Yan raised his eyebrows slightly and was hit by this ki energy and slid on the snow like a water float on the water and bounced several times in a row before he released the force. Luo Yan brushed off the snowflakes on his body and looked at Beiyun. What's the name of this move? Shoot the bull from behind the mountain. After saying this, Beiyun bent her knee slightly and then shot towards Luo Yan like a powerful arrow with a fully drawn bowstring. She opened her mouth. Suddenly, countless invisible fine needles like cow hair flew all over the sky. Luo Yan looked out from his peeping silver eyes and saw that this time the rain of needles was dense and dense, like locusts, covering the sky and falling. Wind and rain from all directions. Chapter 880 Hungry Beast. 8-way wind and rain. This can be said to be Beiyun's most powerful skill. If she can't kill her opponent with this move, she will have to consider evacuating. The dense rain of needles, like locusts, is worthy of the name of 8-way, and the coverage area is surprisingly large. If you want to escape from the range of the rain of needles in an instant, even the fastest footwork dragonfly touching the water can't do it. Although Daozu and crossing Yi can transfer the damage, it still can't escape from the range of the rain of needles. Once it appears, it will also be attacked. However, Luo Yan has completed the analysis of Beiyun, so in this airtight offensive, peeping silver eyes found the blind spot for him. Luo Yan's figure flashed, and he cut into the blind spot with Dragonfly touching the water, and landed in one of the areas with the densest raindrops in the rain of needles. This operation made Baeyun dumbfounded, and he couldn't understand Luo Yan's suicide behavior at all. But at this moment, the needle rain above Luo Yan's head was too dense, and the raindrops collided with each other, causing them to disappear before they fell, thus exposing a safe space in the needle rain. Luo Yan happened to be standing in this space. The next second, the snow was first pierced by invisible needles, and then the key exploded, blowing up snow powder all over the sky. Only the snow, where Luo Yan stood, was safe and sound. Baeyun couldn't help screaming, "This is impossible." Of course, she knew that her 8 directions wind and rain would sometimes have this kind of situation, but it didn't affect the effect. After all, no one has ever been able to predict in advance where a safe area would appear like Luo Yan. Baeyun never dreamed that her strongest killer move would be broken in this way. She immediately slapped several palms, made a quick decision, turned around and left. Luo Yan seemed to be unaware that she had buried landmines in the air around her with the Zenkang palm, and directly crashed into the thunder array, allowing the palm force trapped in the air to explode. But with his powerful body in the posture of transforming into a dragon, Luo Yan advanced against the shock, his high-killing intent bursting out, mixed with the fierce breath of dragon blood essence. The impact made Baeyun's legs weak, and he almost stopped. After 2 consecutive dragonflies skimming the water, when Luo Yan's toes touched, Baeyun's back was exposed to his sight. At this time, in the peeping silver eyes, the silver veins near Baeyun's left rib were missing a corner. She revealed a flaw. Baeyun felt Luo Yan's breath, screamed, and slapped her palms horizontally. This action made her ignore the empty door on her left rib, and completely expose the flaw to Luo Yan. Opportunities are rare, and time will never come again. The flaws seen by the peeping silver eyes are not static. They will change with the flow of time, the movement of the target, and even the changes in the environment. Just like the one that escaped in the way of heaven, it can only be detected and discovered at a certain time. Therefore, although Baeyun once again launched the strange art of transducing sound into needles, the air in front of his palms suddenly expanded and exploded, turning into a small-scale needle rain, like a degraded version of wind and rain from all directions attacking him. Luo Yan still firmly raised his arm and swung his sword, and the dragon elephant turned into a cold light, passing through Baeyun and his left rib. Suddenly, Luo Yan felt a sharp pain all over his body. Baeyun's sound wave needles hit his scales all over his body. Although they did not penetrate the corpse's cold armor, they still brought Luo Yan needle-like pain. At the same time, the spirit in Baeyun's eyes suddenly disappeared, and her eyes became dim. Her left rib was bloody and fleshy, and a large amount of blood plasma and minced meat sprayed out along the trajectory of the dragon elephant's weeping, and fell on the white snow like a bunch of bright red plum blossoms. Heavenly net, die. On the snow not far away, Jiuying had no choice but to use the foreshadowing that was originally used to deal with Luo Yan. The black lines that had been buried in the snow flew wildly, crisscrossing and forming a large net. The blood dragon crashed into the net, and Jiuying crossed his hands and pulled hard. The net tightened and cut the blood dragon into pieces. Seeing the dragon disintegrate into wisps of blood, Jiuying breathed a sigh of relief. Then he looked at Baeyun, just in time to see Luo Yan's sword sweeping across, and Baeyun's blood gushed out like a spring. He felt a chill on his back, stepped back, and looked at the snowmobile fiercely. Jiuying turned around and rushed towards the snowmobile. He knew that only Song Qiutang in the car could save his life now. At this moment, the silent mind domain was lifted with Baeyun's death, but the aftermath still made Jiuying feel that something was rushing forward from behind him at a high speed, rushing towards him. He only had time to move his body to the side, and a faint blood rainbow flashed from the corner of his eyes, cutting a thin crack in the snow. Jiuying froze for a moment, and then his body suddenly split into 2 sides and fell on the snow. Along the thin crack in the snow, you can trace it all the way to the tip of the sword of the dragon elephant. Luo Yan coldly glanced at the body of the man running towards the snowmobile, and then moved towards the snowmobile. He saw a ball of biological grey light in the car. Song Qiutang was still alive. He was relieved. Just then, A loud shout suddenly rang out behind him. "I'm so hungry." Liu Yan's pupils dilated slightly, and he turned around in disbelief, and saw that the fat man who was supposed to be dead actually crawled up at this time. But the fat man has become skinny now, especially his waist, which is so thin that only bones are left. There is no bone armor on his body, but his hands have turned into huge claws, and there is blood and energy rising from his back, as if smoke is coming out. He pounced on Bei Yun's body, opened his mouth in front of Liu Yan, and bit the body fiercely. Like a beast, and like a hungry ghost, he gnawed on Bei Yun's body. Beastly form. Hungry beast, a hungry beast that can never fill its stomach, as if it is cursed. It can injure itself by gnawing on flesh and blood, and its claws are covered with poison due to hunger. It can also drive its reserve energy to become sharp claws to chop its prey into pieces. Special technique, blood dragon spin. While obtaining this information, Liu Yan flashed in front of the beast that was eating human corpses. At this time, Pang Bao's eyes were wide open, and a ball of scarlet flames floated in his eyes, full of ferocity. When Liu Yan chopped off his head with a sword, the man with blood and minced meat on his face opened his mouth crazily and bit the sword of the dragon elephant. Squeak. Sparks flew between the Han sword and Pang Bao's teeth. Liu Yan's nostrils expanded and snorted slightly. The dragon elephant vibrated with a buzzing sound, shaking off the opponent's teeth, and was about to chop off Pang Bao's head. Unexpectedly, Pang Bao suddenly retreated violently, rolling several times in a row, and fell on the snow like a beast, using his hands and feet. Then he rushed forward violently, with a crazy smile on his face, saliva flying from his mouth, and a terrifying and hideous image. Chapter 881 Ending. Liu Yan felt an evil chill enveloping his body. He was not afraid, but he looked at the beast with more caution. Now Pang Bao gave him the feeling that he was even more dangerous than Bei Yun. The dragon elephant shook out thousands of sword lights, stirred up the wind and thunder, and swept away. The sword lights flickered on the snow, so bright that people could not open their eyes. Pang Bao was immediately forced to retreat by the sharp sword force. He retreated violently and shouted frantically, "I'm so hungry. So hungry. So annoying. So annoying." He waved his claws randomly, catching pieces of bloodlight. Long and short bloodlights tore through the air and cut Bei Yun's body into pieces. Several more bloodlights streaked towards the direction of the snowmobile. Liu Yan's figure flashed and appeared in front of the snowmobile. The dragon elephant swept and shattered the bloodlight. As the bloodlight shattered, Pang Bao pounced on him like a hungry wolf, almost hanging on Liu Yan's body. He opened his mouth and bit Liu Yan's shoulder fiercely. The teeth were blocked by the corpse chill armor, and the pervasive corpse Chilean ki made Pang Bao's teeth tremble, and his whole body went cold. Liu Yan also felt a pain in his shoulder from the bite, and he groaned. The dragon elephant slashed horizontally, easily cutting Pang Bao's skinny waist. Pang Bao screamed, and his body was cut in half by Liu Yan, but at this time, his flesh and lumbar spine all gave out a trace of bloody aura. The blood and ki connected with each other, and reconnected the waist that was cut off by the dragon elephant. Pang Bao kicked his legs, and then he somersaulted in the air, and fell on the snow. He screamed sharply, like a wild animal roaring, and his body leaned forward, and his claws dragged blood, and rushed towards Liu Yan again. Liu Yan did not retreat but advanced, and the dragon elephant stabbed straight, and pierced Pang Bao's wide open mouth. Pang Bao was pierced by a sword, but he actually bit the Han sword hard, and the friction between his teeth and the sword body made a tooth grinding sound. His hands danced with a bloody light, cutting towards Liu Yan's arm. Liu Yan immediately let go and floated back, pulling away. Pang Bao stopped and pulled the dragon elephant out of his mouth. A stream of blood gushed out, and fell on the snow. There was still blood flowing in his mouth, but he seemed unconscious, and did not feel any pain. He even showed Liu Yan a crazy smile. "I want to eat you. I want to fill my stomach with you." Not sure if he was angered by Pang Bao, Liu Yan only felt that the dragon blood essence in his body was boiling. The surging fighting spirit roared in his blood vessels, and two golden lights lit up in Liu Yan's eyes. He raised his hands and stretched out his 10 fingers. The claws at the fingertips lit up with a demonic red light, which was particularly conspicuous in the snowy night. Then, He and Pang Bao rushed towards each other at the same time. When Pang Bao sprinted, blood and energy swirled around his arms and giant claws, forming two small blood-colored whirlwinds. Blood Dragon Swirl. This is his special skill, which has both toxicity and cutting power. In a blink of an eye, he collided with Luo Yan. Neither side gave in. Both used their claws to tear the air and cut the opponent. For a moment, blood was flying. Sparks and blood kept splashing on the bodies of Luo Yan and Pang Bao. This was a tough collision. In the options of the two, there was no defense or avoidance. There was only attack. Kill kill kill. Snap. Several pieces of grey-blue dragon scales flew up. Puff. A stream of blood sprayed into the air. In a blink of an eye, Luo Yan's body was covered with faint blood marks, and there were several places with wounds, and stained with black representing toxicity. Pang Bao was even more tragic. His body was torn by the evil claws with crisscross wounds. Some of those wounds were deep enough to see the bones, and some could even see the internal organs. Under the feet of the two, dripping blood kept dripping, with the most blood at the feet of Pang Bao. Luo Yan's evil claw was covered with strips of mincemeat, which splashed and fell on the snow as he waved. "Why aren't you dead yet?" Fatty screamed, raised his claws, and stabbed at Luo Yan's chest. Luo Yan responded with the same action. The claws of both parties stabbed at each other's bodies. The difference was that Fatty's claws had been covered with cracks at some point, and they shattered as soon as they stabbed Luo Yan's chest. Luo Yan's evil claw was still as red as ever, and it broke out from Fatty's back after a stab. At this time, the red light on the evil claw dimmed a little. The disaster light effect was activated, and Fatty's face changed, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood with a wow. His body, starting from the place where the evil claw pierced his chest, a bloody crack spread. Then his body shook, and the body of this beast immediately broke into countless large and small pieces. Disaster light, disintegration. This time, Fatty's life grey light completely disappeared. Luo Yan also sat down on the ground, letting the amber light from his body bury itself in the pile of debris, searching for and devouring the animal blood in Pang Bao's body. After a long while, after taking a breath, Luo Yan practiced the blood transformation sutra and used some of the stored blood to replenish the consumption, and then walked towards the Snaumobile. In the Snaumobile, Song Tang, who was sealed with a lot of tape, couldn't help but reddened when she saw Luo Yan open the door and get in. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, it was torn. A shoe fell near Baiyun's body. Then, Su Jingyuan covered his mouth and nose with a handkerchief, squatted down, and turned the body over with his gloved hands. Liu Minhan came over wearing a windproof mask and said, "They are all dead, Mr. Su. What a miserable death." Han Being looked like she was thrown into a blender. All the bones in her body were broken. The kind that couldn't be put together, and her head was gone. Jiuying Yiming was better. He was just split in half, and his blood and internal organs were all over the floor. The fat guy with a not so smart brain also died miserably. He was turned into pieces all over the floor. It's probably impossible to put them together to look like he originally was. It seems that the woman surnamed Bei is better, but what about these bite wounds on her body? Could she have been bitten by a wild beast? Su Jingyuan stood up and said, "It was Fatty who did it. His brain doesn't work well, but the holy blood he carries is very special. It can allow him to burst out with killing power that exceeds Baiyun in a critical moment. But that would put him in a state of extreme hunger. I think he used that state at the time, but he lost his mind due to hunger, so he bit Baiyun. But I didn't expect that even so, he still died. It seems that the target is far more dangerous than I thought. I'm afraid that, even if number 1 and number 2 come, they won't get any benefit. After all, they are about the same strength as Baiyun. Although they are a little stronger, they are still limited." Liu Minhan frowned and said, "What should we do?" Su Jingyuan took off his gloves and threw them on Baiyun's body. "Send their bodies back. Besides, I have to go back to the headquarters. The matter is too difficult, far beyond my imagination. Whether to pursue or give up next, it will be decided by the Holy Lord." Chapter 882 Yinghua. The headquarters of Shenghu Group is located in a city. Of course, this city has long been abandoned. Once visited by the giant beast, it can be seen in ruins everywhere, but this fragmented city has now regained a little vitality. It is an area near the People's Square, where several buildings are lit up in the dark, without any worry of attracting the attention of the giant beast. Su Jingyuan did not understand this at first, but the adult was confident, and did not worry, that the lights in the dark would cause disasters. So after a few months of careful treatment, the people at the headquarters found that even if there were giant beasts, they would avoid Shenghu's headquarters for some unknown reason. Therefore, people supported the adult more, and believed that he would bring the light of hope. At this time, the vehicle that Su Jingyuan was riding was driving on a newly repaired road. Vehicles could be seen coming and going on the road from time to time, and there was a brightly lit factory area in the distance. Su Jingyuan still remembered that when he came to this city more than half a year ago, it was still so desolate, but in less than a year, it has regained vitality. The power supply and the emergence of factories have attracted a large number of surface survivors. This is an oasis rising in the desert of the end of the world. Every time I come back, I'm glad to join Shenghu group. Sitting next to Su Jingyuan, Liu Hongmin looked at the city outside the car window. The young man said with a pious face, "The Holy Lord will definitely save this world." Su Jingyuan glanced at him and remained silent. When the car stopped, in front of Su Jingyuan was an old 7-story building. This building has hardly been repaired. It has miraculously survived the natural disaster and its internal structure is almost intact. Therefore, it is used as the headquarters building by Shenghu Group. From the 1st to the 6th floors, there are departments with different functions working in them. The 7th floor is exclusive to the Holy Lord. Therefore, Su Jingyuan and Liu Minyuan took the elevator directly to the top floor. The elevator door opened, and the two walked in. A beautiful woman in a professional suit stood up at the front desk. "Good evening, Mr. Su." Su Jingyuan nodded and walked towards the passage. The woman hurriedly walked out of the service desk, smiled and raised her hand and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Su. Miss Yinghua specifically said that no one is allowed to enter without her permission." Su Jingyuan's face changed slightly. Liu Hongmin stood up and said, "Do you know who you are talking to? This is Mr. Su. We need to see the Holy Lord for important matters." The receptionist still insisted, "I'm sorry, but Miss Yinghua did say that if you want to see the Holy Lord, you need her permission. Perhaps you two can contact Miss Yinghua first." Liu Hongmin said excitedly, "When did Mr. Su have to get her permission to see the Holy Lord?" Su Jingyuan raised his hand to stop Liu Hongmin, and then said, "You can notify her, but we don't have time to waste on such details now." After he finished speaking, he walked into the corridor. Two soldiers suddenly appeared in the corridor and raised their hands to stop Su Jingyuan. One of them said, "Mr. Su, please don't make things difficult for us." Su Jingyuan frowned. He was also a decisive person, so he immediately called out, "Ahang." Liu Hongmin suddenly passed Su Jingyuan and cut in between the two soldiers. He punched the man on the left and made him bend his body like a shrimp. He also slashed the neck of the other soldier with a palm, knocking him unconscious. Su Jingyuan walked calmly between the two people, but after a few steps, a voice sounded in front of him. "Isn't this Mr. Su? When did you come back? You didn't even inform me so that I could go out of the city to meet you." Su Jingyuan looked up and saw a woman walking over. She was about 27 or 28 years old. She had a graceful figure and was wearing a red skirt with big flowers. This kind of skirt is very picky. 9 out of 10 people would look vulgar when wearing it. But on her, it looked noble and gorgeous. Su Jingyuan narrowed his eyes slightly. "Good evening, Miss Yinghua." It is unknown whether this woman's real name or a pseudonym followed the Holy Lord to this city and was the Holy Lord's partner who was personally acknowledged by the Holy Lord. Therefore, she holds a high position in the group headquarters. Even Su Jingyuan, who is later favored by the Holy Lord, has to be cautious when seeing her. Yinghua showed a touching smile, as if she didn't see the guard lying on the ground in the passage, and said enthusiastically, "Come, I'll give you a welcome. Let's go to the restaurant." Su Jingyuan said respectfully with an unchallenged expression and attitude, "Thank you, Miss Yinghua, but Su has important things to report to the Holy Lord this time when he came back from the wilderness, and he needs to make a decision." Yinghui leaned back, gently touched her red lips with her little finger and said, maybe Mr. Su forgot that the Holy Lord told us not to disturb him when he is practicing. Now, the Holy Lord has not finished his practice. Therefore, it is unwise for Mr. Su to disturb him at this time. Su Jingyuan said in a deep voice, the matter is of great importance. If the Holy Lord blames me, Su is willing to take full responsibility. Mr. Su is right. Is there anything more important than the Holy Lord's practice? Yinghui chuckled and said, besides, you have transferred number 3 and others away. Is there anything else that cannot be solved? If it really cannot be solved, then it is a problem of Mr. Su's ability. If Mr. Su disturbs the Holy Lord because of his incompetence and causes something to go wrong in the Holy Lord's cultivation, can Mr. Su bear the responsibility? Mr. Su, are you qualified to bear the responsibility? Su Jingyuan's eyes changed. Yinghui sighed again. I originally wanted to help Mr. Su with his funeral, but it seems that Mr. Su is unwilling, so forget it. It's getting late. I'm tired. Mr. Su, please go back. She turned around and smiled at the 2 people who were walking deep in the passage. You stay here and don't let irrelevant people disturb the Holy Lord's cultivation. If anyone rashly takes action, kill without mercy. The 2 people were both men. One was slender, wearing a dark purple long robe, with blood red hair, long hair draped over his shoulders, and a cold face. The other was of medium build, wearing a black vest and wide leg pants, barefoot, with circles of bandages wrapped around his arms and feet. Both nodded to Yinghui. Then he looked at Su Jingyuan and Liu Hongmin with murderous intent. Su Jingyuan sighed, turned around and said, let's go. Arriving at the residence, Su Jingyuan looked out the window in silence. Liu Hongmin exploded. That woman is really messing things up. Also, why did she transfer both number 1 and number 2 here? The 2 people in the passage before were the members numbered 1 and 2 in the bloodline. Number 1, the red-haired man, Qiug. Number 2, the barefoot man, Shizuan. Chapter 883 Responsibility. Looking quietly at Su Jingyuan outside the window, she said softly, of course she can mobilize the blood descendants, even Qiug and Shizuan. Just because she is the woman of the Holy Lord, that's enough. Liu Hongmin said angrily, even if she is the woman of the Holy Lord, what has she done for the headquarters, the group, and the Holy Lord? The rapid development of Shenghu Group is not because of the strategy set by you, Mr. Su, not to mention that you have done everything yourself. She just sits back and enjoys the fruits of others' labor. Su Jingyuan smiled. It's okay for you to say these words in front of me. Don't say them outside, it will bring me disaster. After all, it sounds like what you mean is equivalent to saying that the Holy Lord has the current foundation because of me. Liu Hongmin shuddered immediately and waved her hand quickly. That's not what I meant. I know. Su Jingyuan nodded. But others won't think so. The Holy Lord may not take it to heart. But Yinghui, she will definitely make a fuss about such words. Actually, I can understand her. She thinks I'm a threat. Because the Holy Lord trusts me besides her. If I were her, I would also want to eliminate my competitors. After all, no one will complain about too much pampering. Liu Hongmin was still unconvinced. Mr. Su, you should have told her just now that it was related to the strange fish. I want to see if she dares to stop it. Su Jingyuan smiled. She will stop it, and then she will report the matter to the Holy Lord. In this way, the credit will be hers. Liu Hongmin shook her head and said, then she is really shameless. Su Jingyuan smiled and said, am I not the same? Otherwise, I would not hide it. After all, everyone is selfish. I also want to be above one person and below 10,000 people. Otherwise, I should report the truth to Yinghui. Liu Hongmin hurriedly said, Mr. Su, don't say that. You've been running around outside and doing so many things. Of course we can't give the credit to that woman. You are different from her. Su Jingyuan smiled and didn't refute. Liu Hongmin scratched his head and said, Mr. Su, what should we do next? Continue to hunt down that man? Su Jingyuan shook his head gently. We will continue to track and pay attention to the other party's movements. Just observe. Don't take action. Everything will be decided after the Holy Lord decides. But Yinghui won't let us see the Holy Lord. Liu Hongmin looked tangled. Su Jingyuan said lightly. So, this is not our responsibility, right? Liu Hongmin's eyes lit up when she heard it. In Shenghu building, a room that belongs to Yinghe alone. She took off her shoes, stood in front of the French window, and overlooked the brightly lit city below. A hint of intoxication appeared. This is my city and his city. He said he would protect me for my whole life. He said he only loves me. So Su Jingyuan or anyone else. I won't let them get close to the man, who belongs to me alone. Her face quickly flushed. Why hasn't he come out of retreat yet? This training session has been too long. I'm beginning to miss his majestic aura. The seductive whisper spread out in circles in this room like ripples. Asterisk 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 the car bumped, causing Liu Yan's body to shake. However, he lightly stepped on the front seat with his foot and fixed himself in place, as still as a mountain. Song Qiutang was driving, which was one of the few jobs she could help Liu Yan with. There was a big battle last night. Liu Yan was poisoned and injured. If he hadn't been carrying the dragon blood essence, he would have been a high-level cultivator. After killing Han Jiuying, he fought against Bei Yun and the other two, and the fat man changed his posture in the end. I'm afraid that, even if he could win, both sides would be injured. Now the toxins in Liu Yan's body have been eaten up by the dragon blood essence as snacks. As for the wounds, which were not broken, Liu Yan just asked Song Qiutang to clean his wounds and wrap them with bandages, and then left it alone. Now, he is looking at the screen of his mobile phone. The screen showed a method of practicing a combat skill. Chaos Palm. This was one of the spoils found on Bei Yun's body. The woman contributed to combat skills to Liu Yan. In addition to the one above, there is another one, Zenkang Palm. It is called a palm technique, but after reading the whole text, Liu Yan felt that it was more like a way of using strength. Zenkang Palm can vibrate the airflow and combine it with its own yuan li to shock the opponent from a distance. It can also preset the Kijin at a specified position, which can be detonated autonomously or passively. The power of Chaos Palm is even higher. It can vibrate a large range of airflow and form a turbulent Kijin undercurrent. It cannot be preset, but it can make the Kijin undercurrent attack from unexpected places of the opponent. In addition, whether it is Zenkang Palm or Chaos Palm, the power and effect of Kijin are closely related to the cultivation method practiced by the cultivator. Finally, because it focuses more on the way of exerting force, both combat skills can be used with palms or other weapons. So Liu Yan privately changed their names to Zenkang Jin and Luonkang Jin. He thought this was more appropriate. In addition to these two combat skills, dragon blood essence also devoured the blood of the three people from Bei Yun. Part of it was refined into pure blood and ki to replenish the consumption of blood eye. The rest was transformed into 3 blood essences. They are Sound Bat, Ghost Spider and Hungry Beast. They have different effects. Burning them can obtain the corresponding state and use the special skills of Bei Yun and the other 3. These can temporarily increase the combat power when dragon transformation. But compared to these 3 blood essences, Liu Yan cares more about Evil Claw. In the constant battle, the blood in Blood Eye can be replenished by swallowing other blood essences. The dead air in Sadhorn has stored a large amount of dead air due to the rampage of Pan Crossing's Mecha and the swallowing of Aoyi's beast soul. Only a small part of it has been consumed. Only the disaster light in Evil Claw has been consumed by more than half and has not been replenished. I'm afraid that if the effect of the disaster light appears 2 or 3 more times, the Claw of Misfortune will become a decoration. And from the current experience, if the dragon transformation posture wants to continue to evolve now, it can only devour the blood essence of the giant beast. Just like swallowing the Shibi corpse blood essence before, it will evolve into the corpse cold armor. And swallowing other things is just a temporary state. But swallowing the blood essence of the giant beast is not that easy. This is something that can only be encountered by chance. If the dragon transformation posture wants to continue to evolve, it can only rely on luck. But then again, if it is not necessary, Liu Yan does not intend to let this posture continue to evolve. He is worried that, if it continues to evolve, one day, he will not be able to turn back. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo fanfic novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 884, The Dark Fish Appears. After memorizing the two ways of moving the energy, Xing Kanjin and Luan Kanjin, Luo Yan put down his phone and planned to practice them when he had time. He looked out the window. The car was now driving on the riverside road. They were searching for the Hades fish along the Jiuying River, but they didn't have much hope. Luo Yan just wanted to find a suitable place and try to send sound waves to see if he could fish out the Hades fish. He looked at the sky. The sky was gloomy. Although it was afternoon, it always gave people a feeling that it was about to get dark. Song Tang, who was driving in front, also said, the sky gets dark very quickly in winter. It looks like it will get dark in an hour or two. Should we find a place to rest? Luo Yan nodded. Okay, let's see if there is a camp nearby. We also need to refuel or something. At this time, the Jiuying device, which had been turned on the search function, suddenly rang. Song Tang subconsciously stepped on the brakes, and Luo Yan leaned forward and then swung back. Then he stood up and came to the side of the Jiuying device. He saw a light spot appearing at the edge of the radar screen. Luo Yan couldn't help but look at Song Tang. Is this the signal of the strange fish? Song Tang had left the driver's seat and squatted next to the Jiuying. He took off his gloves and operated the device with his fingers. Soon, some data appeared next to the screen. Song Tang said excitedly, it should be a strange fish. I compared the sound wave frequency collected before. Look, the similarity is 97%. She pointed to a small window on the screen, where there were two red and blue curves that almost overlapped. Luo Yan felt like he had found something without any effort. He originally had no hope of finding the dark fish, but he didn't expect to find it at this time. Song Tang immediately asked, shall we chase them now? Luo Yan glanced at the screen. The light spot was at the end of a tributary of Jiuying River. The terrain there was complex, with many waterways, connecting several nearby streams and rivers, and it was very well connected. Go there. But we have to find a location to emit sound waves to attract the strange fish. Luo Yan pondered for a moment and then tapped a location on the screen. It was a pond or a small lake in a forest, which was relatively closed and just right for setting traps. Let's go here. Let's go catch fish. At the same time, the location where the red dot appeared on the Jiuying device was the end of the tributary of Jiuying River. The water surface here had already frozen, and the snow did not fall from the sky, but the ground was icy cold. Occasionally, there was a breeze, and although it was not biting, it made people feel cold all over. Under this ice surface, a black shadow would occasionally flash by. The black shadow under the ice layer looked like a fish, no matter how you looked at it. But this group of black shadows was as big as a calf, like a baby whale. However, how could there be a baby whale in this inland river? In a reed field not far from the ice, the reeds had been frozen and withered. Even so, the reeds were still dense, mixed with cattails, mulberry and autumn. But they were all stained with frost and frozen white under the winter snow. One after another, figures were lying in the reeds. Boss, that strange fish is under the water. It won't run away. A smart young man got into the reed field and came to these people. These people were all men. The man called the boss was in his early 40s. He wore a hat to keep warm, and there was some frost on his chin and nose. The others ranged from early 20s to 34 or 35. They all had brave eyes, and with various equipment and guns around them, it was obvious that they came prepared. The boss was named Li Chang, a gold digger, a survivor of the surface after the natural disaster. During a gold mining trip in a forbidden area, he accidentally found the introductory essence building secret on the body of a cultivator. He followed the method recorded above to practice visualization, and thus embarked on the path of cultivation. He was promoted to the intermediate realm this year, and broke through to the second level of the intermediate realm not long ago. For a survivor on the surface, it is already rare to be able to cultivate to the intermediate realm. Therefore, he has the ability to pull a team. After becoming a cultivator, Li Chang no longer works as a gold digger. After pulling up a team, he switched back and forth between mercenaries and adventurers. Now he is here, just for the mission of Pingayao Underground City. He is looking for strange fish. As long as he finds strange fish, he can get the reward of Pingayao Underground City. The rewards of the Underground City are very generous, among which a set of advanced realm exercises makes Li Chang very motivated. After several years of experience on the surface, he realized that it is quite difficult to impact the advanced realm on the surface. The exercises alone have blocked the way forward for most cultivators. Only in the hands of a few groups or companies can there be a chance to obtain advanced realm exercises. But even if you join these group companies, you still need to make a lot of contributions to be able to exchange for the skills. In comparison, completing the tasks of Pingayao City is probably even simpler. Li Chang was also lucky. His team has been active in the Fenshu area. Not long ago, the team of Pingayao City swept the nearby rivers and waters before winter. Although they did not find the strange fish, they let this thing hide at the end of this tributary. Li Chang led his team and never stopped looking for the strange fish after winter. And he was very smart. He only searched the tributaries of those big rivers. In the end, got paid off. He finally found it. Now as long as a strange fish is caught, it can be sent to Pingayao to receive the award. Act according to our previous plan. Li Chang gestured, and these men began to act. Some set up sniper rifles in the reed field, some picked up tools and went to the river, and some opened their suitcases and started fiddling with some drones. Li Chang brought 3 experienced fighters, carrying guns and knives and axes, to the river to prepare. Boss, after we finish this job, we can spend the new year lying down, right? The youngest of the group, only about 24 or 25, said with a smile. A bearded man laughed dryly. Why, Xing Feng starts to miss the beautiful woman at home? The young man named Xing Feng said awkwardly. Uncle Gu, don't talk nonsense. A man with a scar on his face next to Li Chang laughed. What are you afraid of? Missing home and women is not something shameful. I also want to finish this job and go home, and I won't come out until the beginning of next spring. The bearded man called Uncle Gu nodded and said, yes, Leo Zhao, you are right. I haven't been home for a long time, and I don't know how the bastard at home is doing now. Li Chang laughed. Okay, after we finish this job, we will take a long vacation and work again in the beginning of next spring. Chapter 885 Operation failed. The cold wind blew. Li Chang was refreshed. The strange fish was in the river at his feet. After catching it, his life would usher in an important turning point. Although he was no longer young, the passion in his heart was no less than that of a young man. Catch the strange fish and get the advanced skills. Once he breaks through the advanced realm, whether he goes to the underground city or joins a group company on the surface, he will definitely be reused. At that time, it will be the day for him to show his skills. Thinking of this, Li Chang's blood boiled. At this time, the voice of the team member sounded in the radio headset. Boss, get ready. Very good, start the action. At this time, under the rapid operation of Li Chang's team, holes were cut in the frozen river surface. It has not been long since winter, and although the weather in this area is cold, the ice on the river surface is not thick. Therefore, it is easy to cut, and it was done in a few minutes. After Li Chang made a gesture, a team member was responsible for controlling the drones, and those drones were carrying homemade depth charges. The power is average, and it may not feel good if thrown into Jiuying River, but it is enough to scare the fish in the water if thrown into this tributary. Li Chang's purpose is to scare. A team of people has already set up an electric net in the river. Once a strange fish is frightened and swims around, it can be stunned as long as it hits the electric net. At that time, it only needs to be anesthetized and dragged to the surface of the river. In Li Chang's opinion, this is almost not difficult. The difficulty of capturing the strange fish lies in searching for its whereabouts. Buzz buzz buzz. Several drones flew to the ice surface and dropped depth charges into the holes in the ice layer, falling to the bottom of the river. The person in charge of detonation looked at Li Chang, and Li Chang nodded. He picked up the remote control and pressed it hard. Bang bang bang. Dull explosions continued to sound under the river surface, and the thin ice on the river surface was constantly shattered, and the fragments were washed up by the river water sprayed into the air. At the same time, a whale-like cry sounded under the river. Li Chang shouted, "Get ready, the strange fish is about to attack the power grid, turn the voltage up to the highest." But at this moment, a black shadow smashed the thin ice on the river surface and soared into the air. A large amount of river water was brought up by it and then splashed around. The cold river water fell on people's necks and made people shiver. Li Chang was also drenched in water, but as his skills started to work, his body naturally felt warm. He took off his winter hat to keep warm, looked up, and saw a big fish the size of a calf falling into the river. The fish was pitch black and looked a bit like a loach, but it was covered with scales and had a light golden dorsal fin. Moreover, it had 4 eyes. At this time, the 4 eyes of the big fish were spinning around and then fell on Li Chang and others. Then it broke through the river water and swam quickly. It seemed that the depth charge just now did not scare it, but angered it. This was the result that Li Chang was most reluctant to see, but fortunately he had a countermeasure. "Use the second plan," Li Chang shouted. At this time, the sniper ambushed in the reeds opened fire. However, the bullets fired were not fatal, but anesthetic needles. One by one, the anesthetic needles were inserted into the big fish, but something unexpected happened. The scales of the big fish were surprisingly hard, and the anesthetic needles could not penetrate. "Damn it." Li Chang quickly gestured. "Use electric nets. Quickly, use electric nets to stun it." As soon as he finished speaking, a team member had already launched electric nets at the big fish. Several electric nets flashed with electric sparks and crackled towards the big fish. Suddenly, the black scales on the body of the black fish suddenly turned blue. After the scales turned blue, the body of the big fish suddenly lost its texture and became as illusory as a shadow. So that when the electric nets fell, they directly passed through the body of the big fish and fell on the frozen river surface. Li Chang's eyes almost fell out. How could this happen? He couldn't understand and couldn't understand. Why this thing suddenly changed from a solid to an illusory thing was beyond his understanding. At this time, the dark fish, whose body had turned from solid to virtual, suddenly shrank. From the size of a calf, it shrank to the size of a palm. This small blue dark fish flicked its tail and suddenly shot out, like a blue arrow. In an instant, it crossed the river bank and crashed into Xing Feng's chest. Xing Feng looked at Li Chang in astonishment and then touched his chest. "Boss, this..." He just opened his mouth to speak. Bang! Xing Feng's body suddenly exploded into pieces. The dark fish emerged from his body. This creature had restored its texture, had a physical body, and returned to its original size. It burst Xing Feng in an instant. Warm blood and minced meat fell on Li Chang's face. "No!" The middle-aged man cried out in grief, his eyes bloodshot. "Kill it! Kill this beast!" Now he no longer cared about the reward from Pingayao City. He just wanted to kill this strange fish. The scales on the dark fish turned from blue to red at this time. Those red scales looked like iron armor, giving people a sense of indestructibility. Gunshots rang out at this time. Fire lines flew from the reeds, cutting off the withered reeds and shooting at the Hades fish. Ding ding dang dang. Sparks kept shooting out from the surface of the Hades fish, and the flattened and deformed bullets fell under it. At the same time, the Hades fish opened its mouth and sprayed a stream of water into the reeds. The water was dark and deep, as if it came from the underworld. Li Chang only took a glance and felt dazed, and he unconsciously walked towards the black water. "Boss." The bearded man quickly caught Li Chang, who then woke up, but didn't know what had just happened. At this time, the black water column had swept through the reeds, and the many gunmen hiding in the reeds were washed away by the black water and couldn't help themselves. They retreated one after another and fell into the reed field one by one. For some reason, after they fell, their expressions became dull, their pupils gradually turned black, and they didn't move. They were still breathing, their chests were still rising and falling, but it was as if their souls had died and they had become living dead. "Boss, this thing is not right, let's go." The man surnamed Zhao looked into the reeds and shouted. Li Chang also knew at this time that this strange fish was not as simple as he thought, and nodded quickly. "Everyone, run away and meet up at the old place." After he said that, he ran eastward. The others also scattered in different directions, making sure that the fish was too busy to be scattered. But at this time, the fins on both sides of the fish trembled, and it made an indescribable strange sound. The sound was like the cry of a night owl, as if it was ringing in everyone's ears, and it was very clear in their ears. In an instant, Li Chang felt extremely irritated, and when he remembered that Ling Feng died in front of him, he couldn't help but ignite anger in his heart, and just wanted to go back and fight with the big fish. The others were also out of control. Some were irritated, some were furious, and some were afraid. All of them lost their reason and sense of proportion. Chapter 886, Overestimating One's Own Abilities. Why is this happening? It shouldn't be like this. We should have successfully captured the strange fish and then handed it over to Pingayao Underworld City for the reward. Then I would get the advanced skills, and the rest would be shared by Ling Feng, Lao Zhao and the others. After that, we would each go home, spend the new year peacefully, and enjoy the time of reunion with our families. We would sit in front of the fire, drink wine, eat meat, talk about all the interesting things that happened during the adventure, and then everyone would smile knowingly. On New Year's Eve, everyone would gather together to stay up all night. In the spring of next year, we would set out together and embark on a new journey. Yes, it should be like this. But why? It has become like this now. Li Chang's mind flashed through one thought after another. He glanced at Ling Feng, who was dead and torn into pieces. He remembered that Ling Feng had a lover of the same age, and they were college classmates. When they were studying at school, they encountered the giant beast disaster, and they finally survived and got married this year. Now the girl is preparing for pregnancy, and when Ling Feng finishes this order and returns, she should start to have a baby. But now, Ling Feng can't go back. Li Chang couldn't even send his body back because it was so broken that it couldn't be put back together. Then, Li Chang saw the bearded Guliang again. His eyes were red as he chopped the big fish with an axe, but not even a scale came off. Instead, the axe was shaken out of his hand, and then the big fish opened its mouth and bit. Only half of Guliang was left. The other half went into the big fish's mouth and was eaten. Don't do this. Spit out Guliang. He has an elderly mother at home. You ate him. How am I going to explain to the old lady? Wait. Zhao Zhao, what are you doing? Don't go over there. Go away quickly. Aren't you going back to reunite with your family? Then why are you coming back? Get out of here. Get out of here quickly. Li Chang watched Zhao Zhao rushing towards the big fish, holding two submachine guns and shooting at the big fish recklessly. The big fish was shot with sparks, but not a drop of blood was splashed. At this time, the nearby river suddenly splashed with water. Then a white streak broke through the ice and passed through Zhao Zhao's body. Zhao Zhao's body was like a puppet being broken into pieces. The sharp white streak, like a magic sword, swept across the sky, and the people in Li Chang's hands were all covered in blood and their heads and bodies were torn apart. Hot tears welled up in Li Chang's eyes. I was wrong. I didn't see my own ability clearly. I was just a little luckier than others. I had the opportunity to step into the door of cultivation and break through to the intermediate level. I was wrong in thinking that my luck would always be good. I shouldn't think that I was the one chosen by the times. I should have stopped at the intermediate level. I should have been content. I shouldn't have accepted the task of Pingayao Underground City. I was so stupid. If this task was so easy to complete, why didn't Pingayao Underground City complete it by itself? Why did it offer so many rewards? I was too arrogant. I was too arrogant. It was all because of me. Otherwise Ling Feng could go home and have a fat baby with his little wife. It was all because of me that Guliang couldn't go home and his old mother and son had no one to take care of them. It's all because of me that Zhao Zhao died here and his family can no longer wait for him to come back. It's all because of me that everyone died and couldn't see the spring flowers bloom. I deserve to die. Li Chang, you deserve to die. A flash of white light flashed in front of his eyes. The white silk formed by the high pressure water flow swept across Li Chang's face, and the man's head slipped out of place. Finally, the reed field on the river bank was quiet. The four eyeballs of the Hades fish turned, and the white silk turned into a stream, sweeping over the corpses and carrying them into the river. The water flow also flowed over the Hades fish, so it rode the water flow back to the river and sank into the water. After being washed by the water flow, the reed field became very clean. except for some guns and tools scattered on the ground. It was impossible to tell that a battle had just broken out here. The surface of the river returned to calm again. In the river, the Hades fish shook its body gently, and large pieces of fish scales fell off, and then grew larger and harder looking scales. Asterisk 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 HMM. About 10 kilometers to the west of the end of the tributary where the Hades fish appeared, there is a small pond. This is a naturally formed pond, and the surface of the pond is not frozen. There are strange rocks and dead trees lying on the shore. Luoyan stood on a strange rock and looked in the direction where the Hades fish appeared. Just now in that direction, he felt a special breath. But that feeling was fleeting. Although he felt strange, considering that the Hades fish was there, Luoyan was not so surprised. Be careful not to fall into the water, Song Qiutang reminded on the shore near the car. Luoyan jumped back onto the shore and said, "This place is ideal for setting traps. There is only one water inlet and no other passages around. As long as we lure the strange fish here, seal the entrance, and drain the water from the pond, the thing won't be able to escape." But, obviously I can't do so much work alone. Song Qiutang picked up his phone and looked at it. The map shows that there is a camp nearby. However, should we hire some workers? Luoyan nodded. I thought so too. Let's go to the camp. Song Qiutang returned to the car and glanced at the screen of the Jiuying device. Very good. The strange fish didn't move. It seems that it plans to stay here for a while for some reason. For you, this is a good opportunity. Luoyan sighed. Yes, after catching it, I will send you back to Pingyao. I hope I can go home before the winter solstice. The car started. Drive towards the nearby camp. Song Qiutang asked while driving, "By the way, I don't know where you live?" "Of course, if you don't want to tell me, you don't have to tell me. I'm just bored and just asking." After waiting for a long time, there was no reply from Luoyan. Song Qiutang glanced at the rearview mirror and found that Luoyan was staring out the window in a daze. This guy's really cold. She shut her mouth and concentrated on driving. No words along the way. In the evening, when it was getting dark, the campsite arrived. The two paid taxis and entered the campsite. The campsite is located in a small town, and the scope of the campsite is surrounded by barbed wire. Those barbed wire fences can't stop behemoths, let alone parasites. Even a car will destroy them if it hits them. However, on the surface, this is the norm. Take the Coyote campsite for example. If it didn't get Luoyan's support, it would be slightly better than this campsite. After parking the car at the campsite, Luoyan said, "Let's sleep in the car tonight. Otherwise, when we come back tomorrow, I guess there will be only an empty shell left in the car." Chapter 887 The Law of the Jungle. Song Qiutang nodded repeatedly. It was not her first day on the surface. Naturally, she knew that Luoyan's words were not aimless. It was okay in the base. Because there was a company in the base, there were usually basic rules to follow. At least the cars parked in the base would not be dismantled. There were only a few cases like the Blizzard base. But in the camp, it was hard to say. The camp was usually hosted and operated by a small gang or a small organization. But whether it was a gang or an organization, the staff was very limited. They could only maintain the most basic rules of the camp, and they were rules that were beneficial to them. As for the others, as long as they did not harm their own interests, they usually would not ask. So when you come to the camp, if you drive the car yourself and spend the night in the car, it will save a lot of trouble. Of course, the night watchman must be strong enough. Otherwise, it is useless. Luoyan certainly would not have this problem. So after the two of them had dinner, Song Qiutang stayed in the car, and Luoyan practiced Zhenkangjin and Luankangjin in the open space. Although these two fighting skills are slightly more complicated than the basic fighting skills like thunder, they are not difficult for Luoyan now. It didn't take him much time to master them. The next step is to polish them in actual combat, so that they can be used freely. After practicing the fighting skills, Luoyan also returned to the car. In the car, Song Qiutang had fallen asleep. Luoyan huddled in the corner with Dragon Elephant in his arms, closed his eyes, and pretended to sleep. Not long after, some small noises were heard. Several men came stealthily Luo Yang coughed dryly in the window, and they dispersed, like frightened wildcats. That night, there were 4 waves of car thieves, one of whom was going to use a knife. After lying down, the car thieves ran away, and no one dared to disturb them that night. It was dawn. Song Qiutang stretched and sat up, and found that Luo Yan was not in the car. She opened the car, and a gust of cold wind blew in. Song Qiutang quickly put on her winter clothes. Only then did she see Luo Yan had built a stove in the open space next to the car, and he was cooking something on the stove. Song Qiutang walked closer, and saw Luo Yan boiling a pot of meat soup. The aroma of meat made her appetite grow. On a cold morning, nothing could be more attractive than a bowl of hot meat soup. Luo Yan sprinkled a little pepper on the meat soup, then took out a bowl, filled a large bowl for Song Qiutang, and gave her a piece of bread. "Thank you." Song Qiutang drank a sip, then exclaimed, "Oops, I forgot to brush my teeth." While she was washing up, Luo Yan soaked a piece of bread in the meat soup. After the bread fully absorbed the soup, he took it up, and took a bite. While eating, Luo Yan looked around the camp. There were almost no people in the camp. After all, it was winter, and few people would come out unless necessary. Of course, those who were starving had to come out to find food. The camp was located in a small town with supermarkets and convenience stores. These can provide a certain source of food. However, it has been 4 years since the natural disaster. Even if there is something, it is estimated that it has been eaten up long ago. Therefore, for a camp to survive, it must either be self-sufficient or trade with other camps or even the base. Otherwise, it is difficult for a camp to survive. At this time, a hand quietly touched the pot of hot soup next to Luo Yan. Luo Yan said without even looking at it, "Be careful of the hot hands." The hand quickly retracted. Luo Yan turned around and saw a boy wearing a sloppy hat. He was skinny and his clothes looked thick, but they were not warm at all. He wore a lot of clothes, but each one was an autumn coat. One of his shoes was big and the other was small, one leather shoe and the other a sneaker, and they couldn't even make a pair. Looking at him, Luo Yan thought of stray cats for no reason. Those little animals had no food to eat, and they were always skinny and hungry. If no one was hungry, many of them would die in the winter. Luo Yan took out a bowl, filled it with meat soup, put a piece of bread in it, and then put it in front of the boy. The boy looked at Luo Yan warily. Luo Yan had already turned his head away. The boy picked up the bowl and ran. He ran all the way to the eaves, and then he looked at the bowl of broth in front of him, as if it were a treasure. He blew a few breaths, not afraid of burning his tongue, and took the bowl, and gulped down a few mouthfuls. Then he took a bite of the bread full of soup, and felt that this was the most delicious delicacy in the world. As he ate, his eyes turned red, and he didn't know what he remembered. At this time, a figure appeared in front of him. A man who was also ragged, but much older said in a deep voice, "Put down the bowl and get out." The boy was not surprised by such a situation. After the natural disaster, the world became a huge jungle. It is normal for the strong to prey on the weak. Without laws, there is no one to protect the weak. Facing the strong, the weak can only give in, and then bully those who are weaker than them. Luo Yan watched all this silently, and did not intend to stop anything. In this world, he could not stop anything. Only by closing Yang Fu and expelling the giant beast can we truly change this world. After Song Qiutang had breakfast, Luo Yan placed the body of a car thief from last night next to him as a warning. Then he took Song Qiutang and the Jiuying device to the depths of the camp. After asking for directions and using some prominent signposts, they found the location of the controller of this camp, the Xianlang gang. Luo Yan planned to negotiate directly with the gang to see if he could recruit a construction team for himself. At this time, they came to a shopping mall. The headquarters of the Xianlang gang was in the underground garage of the shopping mall. However, at the gate of the shopping mall, Luo Yan saw the guards. Several men huddled in the door, with a brazier on the ground and a fire in it. Several men were warming themselves around the brazier. When they heard the noise, they raised their heads. A young but bald man stood up and asked, "What are you doing?" Luo Yan said calmly, "I want to discuss a business deal with the Xianlang gang. Can you take me to see your leader?" "Want to see our leader?" The bald man laughed. "Brother, you think our Xianlang gang is a vegetable market? You can come in whenever you want, let alone want to see our leader. Another gang member said, what's your name and what business do you want to discuss? Just tell us. We will naturally inform the housekeeper, and the housekeeper will convey it to the leader. As for when the leader will see you, and whether he is willing to see you, that is not up to us. Luo Yan said expressionlessly, this is urgent. I need to see your leader now. The bald man jumped up and said angrily, see, do you want me to take you to see the king of hell now? Chapter 888 The Way to Death. Luo Yan frowned, thinking that he was not suitable for negotiation. If Yang Leke was given this kind of thing, it would be more beautiful. He was not an unreasonable person. Since the members of the Xianlang gang were unwilling to pass on the message and introduce him, Luo Yan could only give up his original idea and think of other ways. But when he turned around to take Song Qiutang away, the bald man shouted, stop. Luo Yan turned around, have you changed your mind? The bald man sneered, I just said, this is not a place you can come to whenever you want. Similarly, you can't leave whenever you want. Luo Yan turned around, what do you want? How about it? The bald man glanced at the Cheojin device in Luo Yan's hand and said, give me your suitcase, and let's just leave. Fortunately, the person you met today was your third brother. If it were someone else, a young man like you who knows nothing would be skinned alive if not dead. Luo Yan shook his head, I can't give it to you, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it. Just pretend you haven't seen me. Oh, who do you think you are? Don't want to make a big deal out of it? It's already a big deal. Okay. The bald man who called himself third brother showed a pistol. Do you see what this is? I don't want to say it a second time. Leave the box and get out of here. Luo Yan looked at the gun and saw the man who was warming himself by the fire now standing up. He nodded, I see. He put the box on the ground. Third brother laughed, now you understand. You can get out now, kid. You saved your life, you know that? As he said that, the bald man reached out to grab the Jiuying device. Choke. He heard the sound of the gun not being able to grow out of the sheath. Then, his eyes were bright. Then he felt his arm getting cold. Looking closely, he found that one of his palms had been chopped off. The bald man was stunned for a moment, and then screamed, my hand. My hand. He suddenly raised his pistol, and pointed it at Luo Yan. The sword flashed. He saw an 8-sided Han sword stabbing at him, smashing his pistol into pieces. Then, the Han sword stabbed between his eyes. The bald man looked up and fell down. Kill someone. Brothers, grab your weapons. Kill him. The remaining men shouted, and took out their weapons one by one, but facing Luo Yan holding a long sword, no one dared to step forward. At this time, a voice came from the depths of the hall. What are you yelling about so early in the morning? Hearing this voice, several guards breathed a sigh of relief. Then they shouted, Manager Liu, come and take a look. There's a dead man. The third brother was killed by this stranger. Footsteps were heard. Luo Yan saw a short middle-aged man in his 40s or 50s, running over in a hurry with 7 or 8 big men. When he saw the bald man lying on the ground, the middle-aged man gasped. Then his eyes fell on Luo Yan, and then moved to Luo Yan's sword. What's going on? The middle-aged man pointed to the body on the ground and said. A guard told what happened just now, but he didn't dare to exaggerate. After listening, the middle-aged man looked at Luo Yan. Do you want to see our gang leader? Luo Yan nodded. I want to discuss a business with him. The middle-aged man looked at the corpse on the ground again and nodded. Come with me. Several guards were stunned. Manager Liu, he killed the third brother. A guard reminded. Bang. The manager surnamed Liu slapped the guard on the forehead. He deserved to die. Zhao Laozhen, he didn't even take a piss to look at himself. With his character, he dared to embarrass others. He was blind. Who can he blame for his death? After saying that, he walked in front. Luo Yan followed with Song Qiutang. Manager Liu, who was leading the way in front, looked back at Luo Yan from time to time. A young man who looked quite clever whispered, Manager Liu, are you really going to take him to see our boss? What else? Manager Liu whispered, don't say I didn't teach you. Keep your eyes open when you walk outside in the future. Those who carry guns in their hands and cannons on their shoulders are not scary. The scariest people are often those who carry swords and knives on their backs. especially those who use swords. Those who dare to run around the world with a sword are either crazy or masters. Real masters. If this man had shot Zhao Leozan to death with a gun, I would have asked you to go up and kill him together. But he has a sword and dares to bring a woman with him. This kind of person is not something we can afford to provoke. After hearing what Manager Liu said, the young man looked enlightened. Luo Yan and the others followed Manager Liu along the fire escape and came to the underground supermarket. This place has obviously been renovated. Two large iron gates were installed at the entrance of the supermarket. Once the door is closed, it is difficult to break through. Of course, everything is relative. If Luo Yan wants to break in, this obstacle cannot stop him. Following Manager Liu through the big iron gate, we came to a hall. As soon as we entered, we heard crying and begging for mercy. Manager Liu frowned when he heard the sound and said, "The gang leader seems to be in a bad mood." He turned to Luo Yan and said, "Sir, please wait a moment while I pass the message." Luo Yan nodded and looked into the hall. Deep in the hall, a middle-aged man was kicking and beating a young woman. The young woman's belly was slightly bulging, and it seemed that she was pregnant. At this moment, she was lying on the ground, holding her belly tightly with both hands. The middle-aged man kicked and beat while yelling, "You bitch, you follow me, I provide you with food and clothes. What's wrong with me playing with your sister? Why do you mind my business?" The young woman cried, "Jiuying, did I want to follow you? You snatched me away and beat my fiancé to death. Now you want to harm my sister. She is only 16. If I don't protect her, am I still a human being? Only you are a human being. I'm not a human being, am I? Then you can die too." The man named Jiuying raised his foot and kicked the woman's head. This was no longer a kick, but an attempt to kill her. The woman closed her eyes and waited for death. But she heard a muffled bang on her head. She opened her eyes. She saw Jiuying sitting on the ground with a look of shock on his face. Next to her stood a young man who looked to be in his early 20s, but with cold facial lines, black hair and red eyes, and a murderous look on his face. "You, who are you?" Jiuying looked at Luo Yan in surprise, and then shouted, "Do you know who I am?" Luo Yan glanced at him calmly, then looked at Manager Liu. "Can you command the members of the Cheyenne Lang gang?" Manager Liu was confused, but still said, "I'm the one who is in charge on weekdays. Why are you asking this? Because soon, you will have no leader." As he spoke, the dragon elephant flashed. Jiuying's head fell off his shoulders. Chapter 889. Good people don't live long. Everyone in the hall was stunned. Jiuying, who was furious the previous second, was beheaded the next second. This death was too quick and too clean. They couldn't react for a while. Even Song Tang, who was familiar with Luo Yan's temper, didn't expect that the guy who had just said he wanted to do business with others would not talk about business when he saw Jiuying, but directly drew his sword and killed him. However, she felt that Luo Yan was quite happy to do this. It was hard to tell at first glance that the man surnamed Geo was a good person. He robbed women, killed other people's fiancés, and now he didn't even let a 16-year-old girl go. Did Luo Yan kill a human? No, he killed a beast. The first person to react was the woman who was beaten by Jiuying. She suddenly crawled to Luo Yan's side and kowtowed several times, causing her forehead to be broken and bruised. Luo Yan quickly helped her up. The beautiful woman said with tears in her eyes, "Thank you, sir. Thank you for killing this beast for me." Then she laughed. "Jiuying, you have come to this day." Only then did the people from the Xianlang gang in the hall react. "He killed the leader. Arrest him. Don't move. Raise your hands, or I will shoot." The men were about to step forward, but a voice rang out. "Stop it. Manager Liu." The middle-aged man said angrily, "Jiuying is evil and has done all kinds of bad things. Which of the things he did is not outrageous to both humans and gods? It's just that I'm old and weak, so I had to succumb to his tyranny, and that's why I have been an accomplice for many years. Now he is finally dead, and he deserves it. Are you stupid enough to avenge a bad man? If so, then you should step over my body first." As soon as Manager Liu finished speaking, the clever boy beside him had his eyes lit up and jumped out to protect Manager Liu and me. "Whoever wants to touch Manager Liu Whoever wants to avenge Jiuying, step over my body first. Immediately, everyone around Manager Liu stood up. In the hall, the members of the Xianlang gang looked at each other and finally put down their guns. Manager Liu was right. Jiuying was not kind to the people below. In addition, Manager Liu had accumulated a lot of prestige in the past, and for a time, the members of the Xianlang gang were intimidated. Manager Liu immediately walked up to Luo Yan and said, "Little brother, no, this gentleman. Thank you for getting rid of a nuisance for our Xianlang gang in this camp." Luo Yan knew it. Manager Liu probably didn't mean much when he said these words, but it didn't matter. As long as he was willing to say these words, it was enough. Luo Yan still needed someone to work for him. No matter whether Manager Liu was sincere or false, as long as he could serve him, he would not care about these details. Manager Liu then asked someone to help the gang leader's wife go down to rest, and then sent away the gang members, leaving his confidant. Then he said to Luo Yan, "Sir, my name is Liu Jiuying. I wonder what I can do for you." Luo Yan put away the dragon elephant and nodded gently. "Hello, Uncle Jiuying." Liu Jiuying suddenly felt flattered. "I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it." He was really afraid of Luo Yan now. This evil star who kills people with a sword spoke so politely, and he was really a little uncomfortable. Luo Yan ignored what he was thinking and said directly, "I need some workers. I hope Uncle Jiuying can help me arrange a construction team. I will pay for it." Liu Jiuying laughed and said, "Sir, you are being too polite. You have helped us get rid of a big pest. How can we charge you for it? I don't know what you want these workers to do, so that I can find talents with special skills in this area." Luo Yan told him his plan. After listening, Liu Jiuying pondered. "In other words, sir, you want to install a movable gate at the entrance of the pond, so that the passage to the pond can be cut off at any time. In addition, the water must be drained quickly, so that the water in the pond can be drained to the bottom in a short time. Well, this is not difficult. I know how to do it. At the latest, I can pull out a team for you tomorrow. Then, sir, please stay with me today." Luo Yan said politely, "That's troublesome for you." "No trouble, no trouble." Soon, Luo Yan and Song Qiutang were placed in Jiuying's room. As the leader of the gang, Jiuying's room was converted from the manager's office of the previous supermarket. There is a living room, a bedroom, and a separate toilet and bathroom. Such conditions are quite rare in this kind of camp. After settling down, Luo Yan did not waste time and went into the bedroom to practice. Because it was daytime, he practiced the Yanri Sutra. Suddenly the whole room was warm. After finishing the practice, he walked out of the room and found that there were guests. The young woman who was beaten by Jiuying before has changed her clothes and her forehead has been bandaged. Sitting next to her is a girl of 15 or 16 years old, who looks very similar to her. When she saw Luo Yan coming out, she looked over immediately. Her big eyes were full of curiosity. The gang leader's wife hurriedly said, "Jiuying, go and kowtow to the master. If it weren't for him, my sister would have been beaten to death by the beast named Geo today." The girl named Jiuying immediately stood up and was about to kneel down. Luo Yan hurriedly supported her. She had been kowtowed once by the gang leader's wife before. She didn't want to be kowtowed by her sister again. "It's just a small favor." Luo Yan let go of the girl and looked at the gang leader's wife. "Do you want me to find a doctor for you to check your body?" "No need, Uncle Jiuying has already asked a doctor to check me." The gang leader's wife stroked her bulging belly. Fortunately, the fetus is not moved. Song Qiutang next to her couldn't help but said, "Is that Jiuying's child? Are you planning to give birth to it?" The gang leader's wife nodded. "Anyway, the child is innocent. After giving birth to him, I will teach him well and let him be a good person." Luo Yan shook his head. "In this world, good people don't live long. As long as you don't be a treacherous and evil person and have principles, it's fine." The gang leader's wife nodded. "You are right, sir." He continued, "I heard from Uncle Jiuying that the gentleman will stay for a few days. How about this? Let Jiuying serve you. It will be more convenient to have someone to run errands." Luo Yan simply said, "I appreciate your kindness, but I'm not used to being served. And you need your sister to take care of you." Seeing Luo Yan say this, the gang leader's wife did not force him. After chatting for a few more words, she left with Jiuying. Walking on the corridor back to the room, the gang leader's wife sighed softly. What a pity. I originally wanted to keep you by his side to see if he could take you away. Jiuying took her sister's arm. I'm not going anywhere. I'm with my sister. The gang leader's wife smiled bitterly. Silly child, you will only suffer if you follow me. I'm not afraid. As long as I can be with my sister, the bitterness will turn into sweetness. Chapter 890 Same Kind. Several days passed in the blink of an eye. On the screen of the Jiuying device, the Hades fish was still in its original position, not moving. The pond that Luo Yan intended to use to set up the trap had become quite lively in the past few days. Every day, people were circling around it. Jiuying commanded the members of the Xianlang gang and some of the personnel recruited in the camp. According to the plan designed by Song Qiutang, he went out early and came back late to turn the plan into reality. Among the people, Luo Yan had the most free time. So every day he either practiced martial arts or practiced combat skills. At this time in the afternoon, Luo Yan finished his practice and vaguely felt that the 5th level of the Yanri Sutra was about to be completed. At this rate, it might not take long for him to return to Guangling and try to break through and advance to Tongsun. Thinking of this, with his indifferent personality, he couldn't help but look forward to it. When he arrived at the pond, Jiuying trotted over, wiped his sweat and said, Mr. Luo, the trap is basically completed. Now we are finishing it. Would you like to check it? Luo Yan nodded and walked around the pond. Jiuying explained it to him in detail and demonstrated how the gate at the water inlet worked. After walking around, Luo Yan was quite satisfied and said, you guys go back first. Next, he wanted to catch the underworld fish, so it was not appropriate to have too many people on the scene. Even Song Qiutang was sent away by him. Anyway, Luo Yan had learned how to operate the Jiuying in the past few days, so there was no need for Song Qiutang to stay. After all, the underworld fish was not an ordinary animal, and Luo Yan could not guarantee that there would be no danger in the process of catching it. When he was the only one left near the pond, Luo Yan turned on the Jiuying device and looked at the red light on the screen. Let's start. He knew nothing about the principle of the Jiuying device, but with the help of Shenzang's strong memory, he managed to remember every step of the operation. What Luo Yan was doing now was just replicating Song Qiutang's operation. Soon, the screen showed that sound waves were being emitted, but Luo Yan could not hear any sound. Through the circles of images that continued to spread on the screen, it could be seen that the sound waves released by the Jiuying also covered the location where the underworld fish was. However, after 1 minute, the light spot did not move. Luo Yan could not help but feel a little nervous. Could it be that the Hades fish did not react to the sound waves? At the bottom of the river, where the battle took place, the body of the Hades fish seemed to have grown slightly larger than a few days ago. And under the river where it lived, there were piles of human bones and pieces of fish scales that the Hades fish had shed from its body. The Hades fish closed its eyes and seemed to have entered hibernation, but at this time, the 4 eyeballs on its big head opened at the same time. It felt something, then shook its tail, swung its fins, and began to swim. At the same time, on the screen of the Jiuying device, Luo Yan saw that the red dot began to move. Although the speed was very slow, it was good news after all. This showed that the Hades fish really received the sound waves and was attracted by the sound waves released by the Jiuying device. The red light spot on the screen moved faster and faster. It moved in the complex river channels nearby and soon came to this area. At this time, Luo Yan already felt a strange breath. At the same time, a strange fishy smell faintly penetrated into his nostrils. Luo Yan frowned. The smell was like the smell of blood, and also like the stench of rotten meat. Not long after, he saw waves splashing on the river in the distance, as if a speedboat was riding the wind and waves. Judging from the size of the waves, the size of the Hades fish was obviously much larger than what he had seen before. He did not dare to be careless at the moment, hid himself well, and even used the secret method of opening the ghost wheel to restrain his breath so as not to be noticed by the Hades fish. In a blink of an eye, the waves had entered the pond and remained silent. The surface of the pond was splashing, but the Hadesfish did not appear. Luo Yan did not dare to neglect it, took out the remote control, and let the gate of the water inlet fall. With a splash, the gate fell, and closed the pond. Luo Yan picked up another remote control, and started to drain the water. Suddenly, the water level in the pond dropped at a speed visible to the naked eye. But before Luo Yan drained the water from the pond, he saw that the water that had been drained suddenly rolled back and spun wildly under the pond, forming a whirlpool. In that whirlpool, a black shadow floated up. Luo Yan was startled. Judging from this phenomenon, the Hadesfish seemed to know how to control water, which was much more mature than when he first saw it. And its body, which was as big as a calf, was also much larger than before. At this time, turbid waves several meters high surged in the pond. Under the power of the Hadesfish's control of water, it gave birth to the power of the raging sea. Luo Yan no longer hid. He showed up decisively. The silver eyes of Peeping opened, and while seeing the surface veins on the Hadesfish's body, he also noticed information that was obviously different from the past. Hadesfish, 3 molting and transformation. Each molting and transformation is a qualitative leap. The Hadesfish that has undergone 3 transformations has the characteristics of magic scales, rage, water control, tide sound, and water killing sword. Luo Yan was surprised when he saw this information. As expected of the overlord of the sky, he is still strong even after reincarnation. He has so many characteristics, even before he went down the river to become Kun. None of the overlord beasts are simple, and Kun is a special one among the overlord beasts. When seriously injured and dying, it can transform into a Hadesfish and reincarnate again, almost immortal. Perhaps only Kun can do that. At this time, the Hadesfish in the pond suddenly made a strange cry. The sound was strange and eerie, like the cry of a night owl in the middle of the night, and Luo Yan felt cold all over. Then his thoughts became chaotic and mixed, and even his emotions became irritable. At this moment, Luo Yan could vaguely hear the roar of the dragon lizard in his eyes. The roar was wild and violent, which immediately emptied his thoughts in his mind, and his irritable emotions turned into pure killing intent. A golden light appeared in Luo Yan's red eyes, and the dragon blood essence seemed to be very interested in the Hadesfish. Just like the last time it was hit by the deep bullet, the dragon blood essence seemed to be extremely eager for the giant beast essence on the Hadesfish. The Hadesfish also keenly felt that the human on the shore was different from the one it had met before. For some reason, it felt like it had met its own kind in that human. But for the Hadesfish, for the giant beast, meeting its own kind would not be a happy thing at all. The giant beasts have a strict class system and a concept of territory. When 2 giant beasts meet, a fight will inevitably break out to determine the class level and the ownership of the territory. So the Hadesfish not only did not use the water to escape, but instead let a white streamer shoot out from the pond, which stopped in the air for a moment and then stabbed at Luo Yan like a sharp sword. Hadesfish, water killing sword. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 891 Disaster. Without thinking, Luo Yan rushed forward with the dragon elephant and collided fiercely with the white silk controlled by the dark fish, which turned water into a sword. The water killing sword was immediately blocked, but the dragon elephant was unable to deflect it. At this time, pieces of grey-blue dragon scales had already appeared on Luo Yan's body. The dragon blood essence finally couldn't hold back its desire for the dark fish spirit fish, and Luo Yan released its restraints, so the dragon transformation posture immediately appeared. When the dragon transformation posture appeared, the dark fish was greatly stimulated, and all 4 eyes turned red. Boom boom boom. The pool water exploded continuously, and one after another water killing sword slashed or stabbed at Luo Yan. Luo Yan used the footwork dragonfly touching water, and his figure flashed, and he came to the sky above the dark fish. A golden vertical line appeared in the middle of his red eyes, and Luo Yan's killing intent surged. The dragon elephant was in the air, and he was about to use 10 steps 1 kill to chop it down. Suddenly Luo Yan woke up. He wanted to catch the fish and study it to save his master, not to kill it. He suppressed the murderer Sora released by the dragon blood essence, changed his chopping to a slap, and slapped the fish on the head with the 8-sided hunt sword. The fish fell in the water, and Luo Yan stepped on its belly and jumped back to the shore. Just as he was thinking about how to capture the fish alive, the big fish in the pond slapped its tail and shot towards the shore fiercely. Luo Yan was a little surprised that the fish was so fierce. Seeing the fish leave the pond, he was happy. He thought of using the environment on the shore to block the fish's retreat. As long as he didn't let it return to the water, he could do a lot. But at this time, the scales on the fish's body suddenly turned from black to blue, and then the body lost its texture and turned into a phantom. Then the figure shrank again and turned into a blue phantom fish the size of a palm, which rushed towards Luo Yan like a bullet. Just as Luo Yan had a bad omen, he saw a wisp of amber light gushing out from the gaps between his scales, and then turned into a lizard dragon phantom. As soon as the lizard dragon appeared, it opened its mouth wide to greet the fish, making the fish's behavior look like sending a sheep into a tiger's mouth. The blue fish suddenly stopped, as if frightened, and its body suddenly swelled, and its scales turned from blue to red, and it regained its entity. The four eyes had a complex expression, with shame and anger. In the end, the fish became angry and its body suddenly swelled, and its size more than doubled. The fins on both sides spread out in the wind, as big as wings, and it looked a bit like a kun. The fish, furious, when it used this characteristic, the fish's breath rose steadily, and a huge wave rose in the pond, surging to the bank, and coming under the fish, and then surging and supporting the fish's body. Roar. The fish roared. The water in the pond and the nearby river was trembling, and more than a dozen high-pressure water streams like white silk were violently ejected. The water-killing sword reappeared. The water streams that made up the water-killing sword were compressed to be as thin as white paper, and their cutting power was amazing. They crisscrossed and slashed wildly around, trying to cut Luo Yan into pieces. The cutting power of the water-killing sword was amazing. When they passed through the ground, they would tear a straight and smooth crack. When they swept through the grass, the weeds would be cut off in large pieces. As for trees or rocks, they were also easily cut apart by them. Luo Yan's figure kept flashing, and he could always find a gap in the killing net constructed by the water-killing sword to dodge. Seeing this, the dark fish became even more angry, so another white silk stream from the river pool joined the battlefield. In a blink of an eye, there were as many as 30 water-killing swords on the riverbank. The white silk streams were flying, leaving Luo Yan with very little space to dodge. At this time, Luo Yan was all in front of the white water stream, and there was no way to retreat. But he was not panicked. The blood pupil on his chest emitted a red light, and he used the boiling blood to burn a portion of his blood essence. Ghost spider blood essence. Blood-colored silk threads appeared one after another, quickly wrapping Luo Yan layer by layer, forming a blood-colored cocoon. The magic, cocooning oneself. Bang. Water-killing sword swept across the cocoon formed by Luo Yan, and the cocoon was constantly bounced. But after the water-killing swords of the dark fish were used up, the red cocoon was covered with cracks, but it did not break. Until Luo Yan himself lifted this magic, thousands of silk threads broke and scattered, and he walked out of it unscathed. Then his figure flashed, and swept towards the dark fish. The dragon elephant had been propped up on the snow by him. Luo Yan, with his hands empty, could better control the magic of ghost spider blood essence. The 10 fingers of both hands brought out strands of blood-red silk threads, and drew them towards the dark fish. The silk threads swam on their own in the water waves around the dark fish, and then the blood threads rose, forming a prison. A strange technique, a prison made of lines drawn on the ground. Luo Yan wanted to use this strange technique to control the Hades fish. But the Hades fish was not a pushover. It suddenly opened its mouth and gushed out a jet of dark water. The black water did not give people a sense of dirtiness and muddiness, but was deep and profound, as if it came from the underworld. It swept around and formed a water ball to wrap around the Hades fish. The blood-colored threads released by Luo Yan using the ghost spider essence blood sank silently into the black water as soon as they touched the black water and quietly melted away. Evil water, an advanced product of degraded rainwater. The Hades fish will store a large amount of running water in its body and transform them into degraded rainwater and then purify it into evil water. Evil water corrodes matter and energy and has a special effect in corroding the spiritual will of living beings. At the least, it will cause mental confusion, and at the worst, it will cause stupidity and numbness. Seeing this information, Luoyan took a breath of cold air. The other characteristics of the Hades fish, such as the water killing sword and water control, are easy to say, but this water of misfortune seems a bit overbearing. Apart from other things, the ability to corrode the spirit is scary enough. At the least, it will make you mentally confused, and at the worst, it will make you stupid and numb. If you get involved with this, you will definitely have a bad end. This is much more terrible than the water killing sword. After using the water bowl formed by the water of misfortune to corrode the silk thread and dissolve the drawing the ground as a prison, the four eyes of the Hades fish all looked at Luoyan, and the dark water flow wrapped around its body turned into three black water killing swords and slashed towards Luoyan. This is much more difficult to deal with than the ordinary water killing sword. Not only does it have the terrifying cutting power of the water killing sword, it also has the ability to corrode matter, energy, and spirit. Luoyan didn't know that the corpse cold armor could withstand such an attack, so he didn't dare to take the risk. At that time, he used the two footworks of dragonfly skimming the water and fighting and moving the stars alternately. Then he punched frequently, and the shock air force and chaotic air force were constantly used. Suddenly, invisible ki energies were lingering around Luoyan. When the black water killing sword came through the air and touched those invisible ki energies, they would explode one after another, blowing the water killing sword into pieces. There was also a chaotic air force like an undercurrent in the sea, bypassing the interception of the water killing sword and hitting the dark fish's head fiercely. The dark fish never thought that Luoyan would have such a method and was hit without noticing it for a while. Suddenly, stars appeared in his eyes and he felt dizzy. Those water killing swords formed by the evil water immediately lost control and turned into puddles of black water that fell to the ground. Chapter 892 Entanglement. Seeing that the fish was about to be knocked unconscious by him, Luoyan seized the opportunity and punched it frequently, constantly using the shock force and disruption force. The two methods of force were used alternately, which made the fish dizzy. Perhaps it was scared by Luoyan's beating. The fish turned around and walked away, controlling the water flow under it, trying to return to the pond. Luoyan would not let it do as it wished, and immediately chased after it. At this time, he saw the light body model of the fish take further action. At the same time, after the fish turned around, the four eyeballs on its big head were no longer as bright as before. The four eyeballs were fierce and cunning. Among the giant beasts, only those at the middle level have a certain degree of intelligence, and those at the upper level can already be called cunning. The dominant beasts are more intelligent. Although the fish is still a juvenile of Kun, its foundation is there. It has inherited most of Kun's life essence, and naturally has a high level of intelligence. If you treat it as an animal or a wild beast, you are doomed to suffer a great loss. The example of Li Chang and the others was already there. At this moment, the Hades fish was just pretending. Its real purpose was to make Luoyan chase it. It was brewing a stream of trouble water in its mouth. However, this was its last stock. In the previous battle, it had squandered 70% of the trouble water and planned to use this last stream of trouble water as a winning hand. That's why it went to so much trouble. At this time, it felt Luoyan approaching. But it was very patient, and when the sound of the wind almost sounded behind its head, the Hades fish suddenly turned back and opened its mouth to spray out a large ball of trouble water. As long as it was touched a little bit, Luoyan would be in a trance at best, or stupid at worst. No matter which result, it was extremely beneficial to the Hades fish. But it didn't expect that when the dark and deep water was about to hit Luoyan, Luoyan's figure disappeared. It was as if he had expected that the Hades fish would do this. This was indeed the case. Since the Hades fish appeared, Luoyan had been using the silver eyes of peeping to analyze the surface veins of this big fish. The analysis has now been completed. These data were integrated into the light body model, and the movements of the Hades fish could be generally predicted. So when the Hades fish turned around, Luo Yan immediately used the dragonfly skimming the water to get away, flashed to the big fish's body, and grabbed the fish's tail with both hands. The Hades fish's trouble water sprayed into nothingness, and it was already startled. Feeling that its tail was being held tightly by Luo Yan, it immediately swung its tail to shake Luo Yan off. But in the transformation into a dragon posture, Luo Yan's basic physical strength alone was astonishingly great, and how could the Hades fish just shake its tail a few times to shake it off? Luo Yan tightly grasped the Hades fish's tail, shouted loudly, and soared into the sky. He forcibly brought the Hades fish from the water tied under it to midair. Then he bent his waist and exerted force, swung his arms, and swung the Hades fish in a circle. Finally, when the man and the fish fell to the ground together, Luo Yan smashed the Hades fish into a pile of rocks. Boom. The gravel flew, and the Hades fish was embedded in the rocks, and its body turned over and twisted non-stop. Luo Yan raised his foot, and kicked the fish again, smashing the rocks, and falling to the snow. It slid dozens of meters, and stopped when it hit a dead tree. The fish hissed, waved its wings to adjust its body, and looked at Luo Yan again. But Luo Yan was no longer in the same place. He appeared on the top of the fish, and punched the fish in the head again. Even though the scales of the fish were hard and its bones were as strong as steel, Luo Yan's heavy punch made it see stars. Luo Yan simply rode on the back of the big fish, and swung his fists. For a while, the shadows of fists flew, and kept hitting the fish. Luo Yan wanted to knock it unconscious. The fish felt that something was wrong, and suddenly swung a large swing, throwing Luo Yan out. Then the fish's tail slapped the ground hard, breaking the ground into pieces. It bounced up, and fell into the river, but it was still a long distance away from the river. Luo Yan had deliberately pulled it away from the river. However, the Hades fish has the ability to control water. As long as it approaches the river, and connects with the water vapor, it can control the river water. Just like now. It screamed for a while, and the water on the surface of the river splashed. Several streams of water rushed into the sky, circling and winding to the bottom of the Hades fish. The Hades fish fell into this stream of water and immediately went down the water, and slid to the river. If it fell into the river, it would be difficult to find it again. Luo Yan hurriedly skimmed the water several times, and came to the vicinity before the Hades fish fell into the water, and jumped hard. He pounced on the Hades fish, and used his claws to grab the body of the big fish. The sharp claws caught the Hades fish's iron scales and sparks flew, and finally successfully stuck between the scales. The next second, Luo Yan and the Hades fish fell into the cold river together. It was winter, and although the water was not frozen, it was so cold that it seemed to freeze the soul. Fortunately, Luo Yan was not an ordinary person, and such low temperatures did not affect him. He tried his best to catch the body of the Hades fish. The fish dived into the water, trying to drown Luo Yan. Luo Yan could only hold his breath, and came into the water. He tried to step on the riverbed with his feet, trying to use the force to pull the fish, and prevent it from swimming away. Soon, he stepped on a big rock and his feet sank into the rock. But he succeeded in pulling the fish. When the fish saw that something was wrong, it immediately controlled the water flow, washing Luo Yan's body from bottom to top, and washed him away from the rock. As soon as Luo Yan left the rock, the fish immediately swam to the surface of the water, no longer giving Luo Yan the opportunity to step on the riverbed, to use the force to pull him. When it came to the river, the fish swam at full speed, as fast as lightning. Luo Yan could only desperately catch the fish's body. The fish swam so fast that he even flew to the surface of the water. This made him realize that if there was no countermeasure, it would not be long before he would be thrown away by the fish. Luo Yan's red eyes were determined, and he suddenly stretched out his arm forward, and his claws dug into the fish's body fiercely, sliding a distance, and getting stuck in the gap between the scales. Then he changed his other hand, and repeated the action. He climbed onto the back of the big fish little by little, while the fish was swimming at high speed. At this time, the river ahead turned a corner, and led to another section of the river. The fish was swinging its tail and fins to adjust its direction. Luo Yan knew that his chance had come. He pounced on one of the fins, pierced his claws into the fins, and pulled hard. The fins are important organs for fish, to swim and maintain their balance. Before they developed anti-gravity organs, fish needed to move quickly in the water. Therefore, the fins are still very important to them. The fin on one side was pierced by the claws, which was painful for the fish. What's more, when Luo Yan pulled the fins, the fish immediately lost its balance, like a speedboat out of control. It was originally going to turn, but it went straight to the riverbank. Bang! The riverbank was smashed to pieces by the fish. Then it bounced into the air with Luo Yan. Amid the wail of the Hades fish, Luo Yan fell to the ground with it, followed by an uncontrolled roll. When they stopped, they were several hundred meters away from the river. Chapter 893 Dragon Servant. The entanglement in this section of the river, coupled with the final violent collision, even though Luo Yan was driving in the dragon transformation posture, his ears were still buzzing, and his head was smashed into paste. It took a long time for him to recover. He climbed up, and saw the fish lying on its stomach, with its eyes closed. It was unknown whether it had fainted. If it happens again, it might run away. Luo Yan recalled the experience just now, and was still frightened. If he was a little slower, if he had not caught the fish in time, now this big fish would have gone somewhere. Looking at the fish, who was not sure whether it was pretending to be dead or really fainted, Luo Yan suddenly thought of a problem. He had no means to transport the fish. Before catching the fish, he did not expect that this thing would grow so big in just half a year. With the current size of the fish, I'm afraid that only a heavy-duty truck can be used. But where can I find a heavy-duty truck here? And if it finds a chance to run away on the way, I'm afraid it will be difficult to find it again this time. After thinking about it, Luo Yan could not think of a foolproof plan. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind. Giant longbill. That thing can make intelligent creatures become dragon servants. The Hades fish fully meets this condition. If the Hades fish becomes a dragon servant, there is no need to worry about it escaping. I don't know whether it works on the Hades fish. Luo Yan only has 7 Cheyenne Lang pills in his hand, and 1 has been used on Lin Yuanfang. There are 6 left. If it fails, then 1 will be lost for nothing. But now Luo Yan can't care so much. He raised his hand and stretched out his hand to grab it. A little light emanated from his fingers. Condensed at one point, it turned into Cheyenne Lang pill. At this moment, the eyes of the Hades fish were moving, and it seemed that it was about to wake up. In order to avoid more dreams at night, Luo Yan decisively put the Cheyenne Lang pill into the big mouth of the Hades fish. Suddenly, the 4 eyes of the Hades fish opened immediately when it felt a foreign object entering its mouth. Then there was a gurgling sound in its mouth. It was controlling the water stored in its body to flush out the Cheyenne Lang pill. Luo Yan was using the silver eyes, so he naturally knew what the dark fish wanted to do. He immediately pounced on it and tightened the dark fish's mouth with both hands to prevent it from having the chance to rush out the dragon pill. At the same time, he kicked the dark fish in the stomach to disrupt its movements and prevent it from continuing to control the water flow. The dark fish was in pain and rolled over desperately, trying to get rid of Luo Yan. Luo Yan hugged the dark fish tightly, 1 man and 1 fish, 6 eyes facing each other, and rolled on the ground. While rolling, the dark fish hit a rock with Luo Yan. Luo Yan groaned, but his eyes were firm. Instead of relaxing his arms, he tightened them even more. The dark fish was uncomfortable with his stranglehold, and he couldn't get rid of the 2-legged beast, so he could only continue to roll on the ground. So Luo Yan kept hitting rocks and trees, and he didn't know how many times his back head was hit. He suspected that, if he hadn't been using the dragon transformation posture, he would have been knocked unconscious long ago. After a while, it was unknown whether the fish had lost its strength or the heavenly dragon pill had taken effect, but the big fish finally stopped rolling. Luo Yan still did not dare to let go, but at this moment, he suddenly had a strange feeling. He and the fish seemed to be connected as one. He could actually feel the emotions of the fish, and he felt that there was an invisible connection between him and the fish. This connection was still strong at the moment, but Luo Yan could feel that, if he could not catch up with the growth of the fish, could not always lead and suppress it, this connection would be broken. But in the short term, there was no need to worry. In addition, he was now sure that the heavenly dragon pill had taken effect, and the fish had become his dragon servant. Luo Yan looked at the fish, and a mark appeared on the fish's forehead. It was a not very clear mark of a heavenly dragon, and this mark symbolized the fish's identity as a dragon servant. Luo Yan knew that once the connection between the two was broken, when this mark disappeared, the fish would regain its freedom. On the contrary, if the connection between the two becomes closer and the heavenly dragon mark becomes clearer, then Luo Yan's status as the master will be unshakable. After being transformed into a dragon servant, the eyes of the dark fish are no longer as fierce as before, but it can't be called obedient, let alone flattering. However, Luo Yan tried to loosen his hand, and it didn't mean to escape. Luo Yan thought about it, raised his hand, and through the connection between master and servant, sent a thought to the dark fish, asking it to put its head against his palm. He was testing the obedience of the dark fish. The dark fish's eyes moved, obviously receiving Luo Yan's thoughts, and reluctantly nudged his palm with its head. But when Luo Yan asked it to come closer again, the dark fish bared its teeth, and made a low hum of rejection to Luo Yan. Luo Yan narrowed his eyes slightly, clenched his fist and hit the big head of the dark fish, smashing it so that half of its head almost sank into the ground. The dark fish let out a mournful cry. Because of the heavenly dragon pill, it could not attack Luo Yan unless it grew to the point where it could break the connection between master and servant. Otherwise, Luo Yan would hit it, and it would just take the beating. Luo Yan punched the fish again and again, until it begged for mercy through the connection between them. Then Luo Yan stopped. Then he raised his palm again. This time the fish learned its lesson, and came close to him obediently. It would not move until Luo Yan let it finish. After 5 minutes, Luo Yan nodded, and put down his arm. The beating just now helped the fish to adjust its position and initially trained the big fish. Next, Luo Yan considered how to take the fish away. I don't know if it was scared by the beating, but the fish came close to him, and sent a thought. Then, the scales of the fish turned blue and its body suddenly lost its texture. Then its figure began to shrink. When it shrank to the size of a finger, it jumped up, and jumped into the blood pupil on Luo Yan's chest. Luo Yan immediately felt that the Hades fish appeared in the ocean like blood in his blood pupils, existing in his body in a magical state. At the same time, he could use the Hades fish's two special skills, water control and water killing sword, in the dragon transformation posture. Among them, the water killing sword can be replaced by blood in places without water, or it can be used by burning any blood essence by boiling blood. If the blood essence is used, the water killing sword will add the corresponding characteristics of the blood essence. However, once the Hades fish leaves the body, Luo Yan will not be able to use these two special skills. But in that case, the Hades fish can fight together, and its role is naturally far beyond the two special skills. Whether it is attached or separated from the body, it can help me to a certain extent. In this way, the dragon servant itself can also be regarded as a more special state. Luo Yan released the dragon transformation posture, holding his chest with his hands and said, in any case, the Hades fish is already in hand. Next, send Song Qiutang back to Pingayao, and I can return to Guangling. Chapter 894 Hard to talk about. It was dark. In a small shed at the entrance of the camp, Song Qiutang looked out the window, looking at the wilderness. At this moment, it was not an exaggeration to describe her as looking forward to it. She was worried that something would happen to Luo Yan. If something happened to Luo Yan, she might not be able to return home. Don't look at the fact that the Xianlang gang is obedient to Luo Yan and treats her with great respect. Once Luo Yan gets into trouble, Song Qiutang knows that her end will not be very good. The experience in the wilderness during this period has made her understand how terrible it is for a woman who has no ability to protect herself to be stranded in the wilderness. Those people in the Xianlang gang may not kill her, but they may use her as a reproductive tool. If Luo Yan really gets into trouble, she can only consider running away. In any case, she would rather die than become a tool. Well, Miss Song, what exactly is Mr. Luo trying to catch? Liugui asked with curiosity. Catching fish. Song Qiutang said casually. Liugui muttered. Where can you catch fish in the winter, and in that kind of place? At this moment, Song Qiutang suddenly saw a figure coming from the direction of the wilderness. She recognized Luo Yan at a glance. He's back. It wasn't until Luo Yan stood in front of her that she was truly relieved. Then seeing Luo Yan's empty hands, Song Qiutang hurriedly asked, "Didn't you catch it?" Luo Yan nodded. "It ran away." He and Song Qiutang were not even friends, so there was no need to tell her the truth. Song Qiutang couldn't help but ask, "Then should we chase it?" Luo Yan shook his head. "Forget it. That thing fooled me once. I'm afraid it won't fool me again. I've been out for a long time. I have to go home to see a little. Let's go tomorrow. I'll take you back to Pingyao first." Hearing this, Song Qiutang nodded repeatedly. Of course, she didn't want to continue wandering in the wilderness. It would always be good to be able to return to the underground city one day earlier. "But before I go back, I have to go to another place to take a look," Luo Yan suddenly said again. Song Qiutang couldn't help but blink, wondering where Luo Yan was going. A few days later. "That's the Blizzard base." Song Qiutang, who was acting as a driver in the car, said to Jiuying, who was sitting next to him. Behind her sat the wife of the leader of the Xianlang gang. Her name was Jiuying, but her surname was not Ni. When Luo Yan was about to leave, he took Jiuying and Jiuying away with him, based on the principle of being a good person to the end. This would prevent the two from being harmed by the gang members after he left. Luo Yan planned to stop by the Blizzard base on his way back. Yifei of the Mole gang died because of him. Although he avenged Yifei that day, Luo Yan did not go back to the base to inform them. "I'm afraid those children, especially Yifei's younger brother, don't know that the young leader has passed away." In addition, Luo Yan wanted to settle Jiuying and Jiuying in the base, in the hotel in Changqing. So he brought them to the Blizzard base. Now Luo Yan can be regarded as a celebrity in the base. Even the gatekeeper knows him and does not collect taxes from him. He directly lets the car in. After entering the base, Luo Yan found that the people walking back and forth on the high walls of the base were no longer the people of the Snow Wolf Company. Instead, they were members of the Thunderfire. It seemed that after he left, the Blizzard base had changed hands. Otherwise the Snow Wolf Company would not have allowed the people of the Thunderfire to patrol the high walls of the base. This question was answered after meeting Changqing. Li Binghang is dead. Gong Xiao is also dead. Now the Snow Wolf Company has disbanded. At present, the base is run by us, the Thunderfire. In the quiet room of the hotel, Changqing smiled and made a cup of tea for Luo Yan. Luo Yan was a little surprised. Why did he die suddenly? Changqing shook his head. "We don't know the details. We only know that Li Binghang shot himself in his office. Captain Gong Xiao was killed, along with Li Binghang's secretary Shoz and several guards. The scene was so tragic." He lowered his voice. "On the day you left, Li Binghang received some strangers. He died that day. We think he died at the hands of those strangers. As for the reason, we don't know." Luo Yan nodded, without going into details. He had no feelings for Li Binghang, but felt sorry for Gong Xiao's death. After all, that man was not bad. He continued, "Mr. Chang, are you short of people here?" Changqing looked at the Jiuying sisters sitting in the corner and smiled. "Are they yours?" "Friends." Although Luo Yan didn't feel that he was familiar enough with the sisters to be called friends, he knew that if there was no relationship, it was hard to guarantee that Li Ho would not embarrass them after he left. Changqing nodded and said, "Since you are Mr. Luo's friend, it will be easy. I just need a cashier and a waiter. If you two are willing to do it, then stay in our hotel." Jiuying was overjoyed and nodded repeatedly. After finishing this matter, Luo Yan left the hotel. In the small courtyard where the orphans of the Mole gang lived, Xiao was practicing martial arts. Suddenly, a voice said, "Raise your hands 1 inch higher, move your center of gravity slightly forward, don't bend your legs, and keep your waist straight." The girl raised her head and saw Luo Yan walking in. She immediately ran to Luo Yan and instinctively opened her hands to hug him. But she stopped and put her hands down when she thought of something. But at this time, Xiao felt her body warm up. It turned out that Luo Yan hugged her lightly. "Very good, you didn't slack off. I'm very happy." Luo Yan hugged her lightly and rubbed her head to show encouragement. Xiao smiled and nodded. "I practice every day, Mr. Luo." She then turned around and shouted, "Come out quickly, Mr. Luo is back." Xiaobudian immediately ran out of the house, but he ran too fast and slipped on the snow and fell to the ground, sliding to Luo Yan's feet. Luo Yan reached out and picked him up. Xiaobudian's eyes were full of tears and his nose was hanging from his mouth. He was about to rush over, but was held by Xiaodao. "Wipe your snot first," Xiaodao said viciously. When Yi Xiang came out in a wheelchair, Luo Yan's eyes darkened and said, "Let me talk to Yi Xiang alone." In the house, Luo Yan closed the door, came to Yi Xiang's wheelchair, squatted down, and looked at the boy. He wanted to tell Yi Xiang about Xing Feng's death. But when the word came to his lips, Luo Yan found it difficult to say it easily. He could face strong enemies and settle grudges with a sword. But it was difficult to tell the boy in front of him about Xing Feng's death. After a few breaths, Luo Yan finally spoke. "Yi Xiang, I want to tell you a sad news. You should have noticed it too. Yes, your brother, Yi Fei, is gone. I buried him with my own hands." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.